Hello. Hi guys. Let me know if the audio is coming fine. Welcome to the live stream. And we reached 5037 subscribers last I checked. That feels nice. Thanks a lot for sticking by my inconsistent live streams and horrible production quality. But it's still fun nonetheless to get so much support. So before other people join, let's just discuss the fun things that we saw today. First is BBC admitted that they haven't been paying taxes. So for anyone who hasn't caught up with the entire thing, I think Indian government was sending BBC notices for about 1 or 2 years now that kya bhai tax de. So BBC wasn't paying much heed. Then they make the BBC documentary instead, blaming Modi for every bad thing that's ever happened in the history of humanity. Then after that, GUI suddenly sits up and thinks that ab to sala tax leke hi rahenge, and then they send the people to acquire the tax. They raid their offices, BBC's offices, and again the commies of the world lose their minds. And and then of course an NGO from India sues BBC for I think about $10 billion or $1 billion, some weird insane number. And that NGO is represented by Mr. Harish Salve, who is the third highest paid lawyer in the biggest democracy in the history of mankind. And then today, on the tax issue, BBC admits that they have really underreported about $4.8 million. And they are sorry or something. Rohan is saying next Bangla live stream kobe hobe? Probably porshu, kalke Brahma Puranta korbo abar. Okay. And the other funny thing, other nice thing that happened is the new Adipurush trailer. Did you guys see it? This time I'm impressed. वो वानर सेना वाले scenes वो चला गया है हाथ से बाहर इनसे वो उससे ज़्यादा अच्छा नहीं हो पाएगा. You'll have to forgive Bollywood for this much. पर चलो effort है और जय श्री राम concept का एक mainstreamization होगा वो भी ठीक है. I especially liked Ravan scene, where he transitions from the bhikshu to actually the evil facet. That scene was really great. Another scene they showed for a fraction of a minority of a microsecond, okay, where I think Hanuman and Ravan were having a fight and both of them hit each other with a gada. That scene was beautiful. Saif Ali Khan has really built up his physique. They were fighting and they looked really equal. That scene was really great. I especially liked Ravan's Saif Ali Khan's scenes only. But the Vanar Sena animations, वो छोड़ दो, वो नहीं होगा. उसका कुछ rectification भी नहीं हुआ है. I've given up on that. और म्यूजिक का मिक्सिंग तो मेरा इश्यूज है ही. बट चलो देखते हैं क्या होता है. Ninad is here. नमस्कार. Legend movies. निरंजन दा please roast Bengali. अरे क्यों? Great content incoming. Yes. Okay. So today we are going to discuss 4 research papers by Dr. Subhash Kak. That's an ambitious project, but let's see. 2 of them are about 15 to 20 pages long, and 2 of them are about 4 to 5 pages long. That's why I thought maybe we can do it in one day. But all of them have one obviously connecting tissue, that he's trying to find out what are the relevances of ancient Indian philosophy. हमारा तो फिलोसॉफी और साइंस एक साथ मिला हुआ था. नेचुरल साइंस और सोशल साइंसेस में उतना तो गैप नहीं होता था 2000-3000 साल पहले. तो ही हैज़ ऑलवेज बीन ट्राइंग टू फाइंड आउट what are the modern theories of sciences hidden in ancient Indian sciences that may have been appropriated or may have been forgotten or may have been reinvented without giving credit. All of those things. So and I also thought that I would do it by order of size of the papers. But then I thought maybe he has updated his ideas as he has gone on in life. So I decided to do it in chronological order. So the first paper, he did his PhD from IIT Delhi in 1970. Okay. So this paper is written in 1986. It's called The Roots of Science in India. Then his next paper is written in 1991. It's called Panini's Grammar and Computer Science. इन दोनों चीज़ों में क्या similarities हैं and क्या connections है. That's the topic of that paper. That's pretty fascinating. Then this is the one I'm probably most excited about. This is from 2000. Year कहाँ गया? Okay, this is from 1999. This is called The Speed of Light and Puranic Cosmology. Since we are reading the Brahma Puran, so we'll maybe find some things really relevant. And then his year 2000 wala paper, that's called Indian Binary Numbers and the Katapayadi Notation. That's just 4 pages long. Okay. So we'll start the papers now. Let's see if anyone's asking something. It's not a movement, it's stagnant. Oh, ex-Muslim movement. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. But वो मेरे लिए उतना relevant नहीं है, because I'm interested in debating Muslims, right? So I can't, as a non-Muslims, I can't just debate someone who keeps saying that no, Islam does not teach violence. So I'm instead going to read whatever their best version of their Quran is. Okay, critical Quran is not relevant in these debates. वो बोलेगा नहीं ऐसा interpretation नहीं है, तुम गलत बोल रहे हो. I was seeing one day in ex-Muslim live stream that they were saying that ये जो idol तोड़ने का concept बोला गया है, even that's misinterpreted. Idolatry का against जो उनका movement है, that is in terms of not having any idol in your mind. Okay, that's what they were interpreting it as. Not breaking down actual physical idols. You are not supposed to have any fascination for some person. That's their theory of being against idolatry. तो ये सब interpretation देगा तो हम non-Muslim क्या उनसे debate करेंगे. तो अगर कोई ex-Muslim है उनको debate करने दो, नहीं तो तुम उनका ही best version of उनका इस्लाम समझ लो, उनसे वो पढ़ के तुम उनसे बात कर सकते हो कि अच्छा ऐसा क्या सच में हो रहा है, और अगर हो रहा है तो आप लोग क्यों डिफेंड कर रहे हैं. दैट्स द एक्सटेंट ऑफ इट. उससे ज़्यादा रेलेवेंस बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है. ओके, लेजेंड मूवीज सेइंग नीराजंदा प्लीज रोस्ट बंगाली कम्युनिटी बिकॉज दे आर ग्रोइंग मोर वोक. अरे जाने दो ना, 150 साल में तो एक्सटेंट हो जाएगा. उनका फर्टिलिटी रेट है 2 से कम या 1 वेक में चला गया है, और बाकी सबको अभी ट्रांसजेंडरिज्म पसंद है, आधे लोग गे भी हो जाएंगे, और बाकियों का है मेंटल हेल्थ का इतना ड्रग्स, और फिर ओबेसिटी और कर्वीनेस भी पसंद है सबको. तो 42 में हार्ट अटैक होकर भी आधे लोग मर जाएंगे, तो कोई जिंदा ही नहीं रहेगा. पूरा इंडिया संभालेगा ये मुस्लिम लोग, थोड़ा क्रिश्चियन मिशनरीज और योगी आदित्यनाथ. तो वो लोग इरेलेवेंट हो गए अभी. द रावणा इज एक्चुअली द मोस्ट इंटरेस्टिंग बिट इन द मूवी. या दैट सीम्स लाइक इट. ओके, नाउ लेट मी कास्ट द फर्स्ट पेपर हियर. द रूट्स ऑफ साइंस इन इंडिया. Full screen. Let's see what he has written. Even I have not read this paper beforehand, so I'm basically reacting to this paper. Okay, and let me just open my YouTube from my phone as well, so that I can check if anyone complains about the audio or not. Let me know if the lag and all happens. Okay, lots of people have joined. Thanks guys. रात के 12 बजे ये सब एंशंट इंडिया का पेपर सुनने आए हैं. ओके, स्टार्टिंग देन. लेट्स सी व्हाट डॉक्टर सुभाष काक wrote in 1986 regarding the roots of science in Indian philosophy in India. So, Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Louisiana State University, Baton Rouge, speaks at India International Center, New Delhi, January 3, 1986. I have long been interested in paradoxes. Yet it was a surprise when I found that many paradoxes that concern the contemporary intellectual are echoes of the paradoxes of the Rigveda, Sankhya, and other ancient philosophical traditions. Meanwhile, I was looking for some fresh examples of early calculating methods or algorithms to use as illustrations in an essay on computer science. 1986 में बोल रहा है ये सब. Since most authors give examples from Greek mathematics, I thought that a good place to look for new examples would be ancient Indian mathematics. This took me to the methods of Aryabhatta and Brahmagupta. Now, Aryabhatta's algorithm called Kuttaka or pulverizer by Indian mathematicians was meant to solve linear indeterminate equations. Such solutions are fundamental to many computer science applications, and a method called Chinese remainder method is used to find them. This method is also used in the design of computers that do not fail when the computer components fail, and in error-free information transmission in the presence of noise. Upon analysis, I found that Aryabhatta's method was extremely efficient computationally. अच्छा ये पेज टर्निंग में जेस्टर में बहुत टाइम लगता है, ठीक है. In fact, as efficient as recent improvements to the Chinese remainder method that were developed only in the 1970s. Similarly, the method of Brahmagupta, Jayadeva and Bhaskara II on an extension of the Aryabhatta problem, which was rediscovered in Europe more than 1,000 years later, has been recently shown by Selenius to be optimum in minimizing the number of steps. Artificial intelligence, 1986 का पेपर है, ठीक है. Artificial intelligence is one of my research interests. An all-important problem is that of computer processing of language. It was first believed in the 1950s that computers could be programmed to translate from one language to another. Owing to the ambiguity that characterizes everyday language and the fact that meaning itself may vary in different contexts. अच्छा, ये जो इसको पता है यही बहुत बड़ा बात है. That meaning itself may vary in different contexts, and that is mostly true in terms of Sanskrit especially. And the fact that meaning itself may vary in different contexts, it was soon realized that translation by computer was not going to be successful. How can any machine, without using contextual information, sort out the meanings of sentences such as the coat was packed, she dropped the plate on the table and broke it, he saw that gasoline can explode. ये सब में एम्बिग्यूटी है ना, क्योंकि इसका तो लिटरल मीनिंग नहीं है. ये इसमें हम थोड़ा मेटाफोर या हमारा थोड़ा फिगर ऑफ स्पीच, थोड़ा वोकेबुलरी, लोकल डायलेक्ट्स, ये सब आ जाता है ये सब डिस्कस करने में. Nevertheless, great progress has been made in the past 30 years in using computers as an aid in translation and in the development of question-answer systems that are sometimes also called expert systems. What is required here is a means of logically storing knowledge in the computer so that questions put to the computer would elicit appropriate answers. जो कि आज ChatGPT कर रहा है थोड़ा बहुत. We might, for example, have a medical diagnosis system which can tell the patient whether or not his symptoms imply a certain disease. 1986 का paper. Even these systems require grammatical analysis by the computer of the questions typed into it. Exactly. It was natural to see how the famous grammar of Panini compared with the grammars used in computer science. I was amazed to discover that the knowledge representation philosophy of Panini is equivalent to that of the most powerful computer schemes. It turned out that about the same time, Rick Briggs of RISCS in California was making a more comprehensive analysis of the contributions of Indian grammarians, albeit of a much later vintage, the school of new grammarians that began in the early 16th century with the publication of Bhattoji Dikshita of Vyakarana Bhushanasara. In a paper published in the spring 1985 issue of the Artificial Intelligence magazine, Briggs wrote that among the accomplishments of the grammarians can be reckoned a method for paraphrasing Sanskrit in a manner that is identical not only in essence but in form with current work in artificial intelligence. In fact, Briggs believes that the Sanskrit grammarians have already found a way of solving what is perhaps the most important problem of computer science, namely that of natural language understanding and machine translation. Briggs adds, "It is interesting to speculate as to why the Indians found it worthwhile to pursue studies into unambiguous coding of natural languages into semantic elements. It is tempting to think of them as computer scientists without the hardware, right? But a possible explanation is that a search for clear, unambiguous understanding is inherent in the human being." Another contribution of this paper is already getting pretty fascinating, huh? Another contribution of the Indians that is equally profound and fundamental in scope is the development of mathematical logic. Basic to the invention of transistor electronics as well as the computer, it is normally credited to mathematicians in the 19th and 20th centuries. In two books published by the Harvard University Press, Ingalls and Matilal have revealed to the Western readership how writers of the Navya Nyaya school had created essentially the same discipline about 600 years before their Western counterparts. To give an entirely different example from the area of brain research, consider the insights of the past 30 years which show that the two cerebral hemispheres specialize in different functions. It is now believed that a rough characterization of the two hemispheres according to the following categories is possible. तो लेफ्ट हेमिस्फीयर में क्या क्या है? वर्बल, सिक्वेंशियल, टेम्पोरल, डिजिटल, लॉजिकल, एनालिटिक, रैशनल. अच्छा, इनका ऑपोजिट देखते हैं. तो लेफ्ट हेमिस्फीयर में वर्बल, राइट हेमिस्फीयर में स्पेशियो विजुअल एंड नॉन वर्बल. लेफ्ट हेमिस्फीयर में सिक्वेंशियल, टेम्पोरल एंड डिजिटल. राइट हेमिस्फीयर में साइमल्टेनियस, स्पेशियल एंड एनालॉजिकल. लेफ्ट हेमिस्फीयर में लॉजिकल एंड एनालिटिकल, तो राइट हेमिस्फीयर में होलिस्टिक, सब मिला के, एंड सिंथेटिक. लेफ्ट हेमिस्फीयर में रैशनल, तो राइट हेमिस्फीयर में इंट्यूटिव. तो इंट्यूटिव तो हमारे न्याय शास्त्र में बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है ही, क्योंकि इंट्यूशन इज बेसिकली ऑलमोस्ट you draw inferences on whatever knowledge you have and intuitions. So that could be manas, pratyaksha, praman, or simply What's the other praman? I forgot. Anyway, their inference is a praman in itself. It is noteworthy that in 1910, Sri Aurobindo described split brain dichotomy in terms that would be considered quite accurate even now, 75 years later. He wrote that, okay, now this is Sri Aurobindo's quote. He said, "The intellect is an organ composed of several groups of functions divisible into two important classes, the functions and the faculties of the right hand, the functions and faculties of the left hand. The faculties of the right hand are comprehensive, creative and synthetic. The faculties of the left hand, critical and analytic. The left limits itself to ascertained truth. The right grasps that which is still elusive or unascertained. Both are essential to the completeness of the human reason. These important functions of the machine have all to be raised to their highest and finest working power. If the education of the child is not to be imperfect and one-sided, so if you don't want your child's education to be imperfect and one-sided, both of these ways of approaching something has to be raised to the highest quality. In fact, this insight is a very ancient one. In the yoga system of Patanjali, one technique of meditation consists of breathing in turn through the alternate nostrils, pranayama, apparently to synchronize the activities of the two hemispheres. Okay, this is the end of one subchapter. This is already pretty fascinating. Let's see if any important comments have come. My comment section has frozen. Let me refresh it here. Okay, the keyword is taught. Okay, but Vedic Pathshalas taught it to children, right? Sanskrit is an university level language and we cannot expect a child to be able to communicate in it. Yeah. But बचपन से शुरू करना ही था. Okay, let's see. What is to be made of the preceding? ये अभी तक हमने जो पढ़ा. Does it merely represent evidence of chance development at different times? So ये सब क्या by chance हो गया? Of certain intellectual areas without either a general framework for scientific growth or an understanding of the scientific method? Or are the ancient Indians to be credited with a deep understanding of natural phenomena, which, while not always expressed quantitatively, clearly signifies an empirical approach to knowledge? The evaluation of the contributions of the ancient Indians has gone through several revisions in recent times. When a systematic reconstruction of India's past was begun about 200 years ago, it was first believed that India might have been a mother civilization of ideas. But the inconclusiveness of the chronology of ancient India, the decipherment of several ancient languages of the Middle East giving more reliable records of a different geographical area, a comparative lack of vigor of Indological studies, I wonder why, Karl Marx, a comparative lack of vigor of Indological studies, as well as evidence of considerable interaction amongst the ancient nations, iska lack, have made it hard to construct a history of the birth and evolution of ideas. Many scholars have found it easy to assign credit to nations whose records have come down to us. This is not always justified, especially when there exists indirect evidence that challenges such assignment. A new myth has risen in recent years. It is claimed that Indians were interested primarily in spiritual and mystical experience. Of course, the achievements outlined earlier appear to contradict this myth. Let us look at key ideas in several areas where the evidence seems to demand further investigation. Astronomy. The currency of several strange tablets led Laplace in the 18th century to assert that it must be owned that some elements of the Hindu astronomy seem to indicate that they have been determined even before the first epoch, before 3102 BC. Thus, the question of the sun's center, which they fix at 2.4173 degrees north, I think, could not have been of that magnitude, but at the year 4300 before the Christian era. The epicycle model, as well as precession of the equinoxes, were also once believed to have originated at least independently in India. Several recent histories credit Babylon and Greece as being the source of the central ideas in Indian astronomy. The Indians are credited with cleverly hiding these sources and interpolating tables so as to make the origins of their astronomy look more ancient than these actually are. This is done even though there exists no conclusive evidence to support this revision, and even though there is considerable indirect evidence that goes counter to this reconstruction. This is what the Syrian astronomer monk Severus Sebokht writing in 662 AD, had to say about Indian astronomy and mathematics. I shall not now speak of the knowledge of the Hindus, of their subtle discoveries in the science of astronomy, discoveries even more ingenious than those of the Greeks and Babylonians, of their rational system of mathematics, or of their method of calculation which no words can praise strongly enough. I mean the system using 9 symbols. If these things were known by the people who think that they alone have mastered the sciences because they speak Greek, they would perhaps be convinced, though a little late in the day, that other folk, not only Greeks but also men of a different tongue, knew something as well as they. It should be noted that a great deal of uninvestigated manuscript material on Indian astronomy is available in India and the West. Careful analysis of this material may yet allow one to trace the direction of borrowings more conclusively. Remember what Bibek Debroy says, that there's, I think, about 4 lakh Sanskrit manuscripts lying around all over India in different museums or in different research institutions like Bodhi, etc., which are to date untranslated. And most of our scholars, whether be it from history or sciences, are obviously have no remote understanding of Sanskrit. So who knows what treasure trove we are sitting upon, yet untranslated. And other than that, क्या क्या नालंदा में जला दिया वो तो छोड़ ही दो, क्या क्या नहीं जल गया वो भी अभी भी अनट्रांसलेटेड बैठा पड़ा है यहाँ वहाँ पे. ठीक है, ओके, लेट्स सी. उपयोग तो करने ना जब मानेंगे विमाना शास्त्र है, यूएसपी लोग हंसते हैं. एटलीस्ट वो टेक्नोलॉजी उसमें दी है, उसे यूज़ करके फिर रिजेक्ट करो. Yeah, and I've been wondering that what is the idea with Vimana, because ब्रह्म पुराण में बार बार लिखा है कि वो पार्वती और शिव के शादी में उत्तराखंड में सब भगवान विमान में आ रहे हैं. ये वो इवन द डिफरेंट सीजन्स, द डिफरेंट ऋतुज, एवरीवन इज अराइविंग ऑन अ डिफरेंट विमाना and all the vimanas are dressed up differently. So I wonder if what they meant by Vimana. Did they mean a flying chariot or a different kind of a chariot or an aeroplane? I don't know about those things as of yet. Okay, let's see then what happened in mathematics. The main facts are better known here. Problems of astronomy and altar construction in the Vedic era gave birth to the geometry of the Shulva Sutras, which included the results of the so-called theorem of Pythagoras and approximations to irrational numbers. Aryabhatta's Aryabhatya, written in 499 AD, which is the earliest mathematical text that bears the name of the author, described the decimal place value system of numbers, squares and cubes, square roots and cube roots, the areas of triangles, rectangles, trapezia and circles, volume of a pyramid, chords and signs of arcs of a circle, pi, shadow problems, intersecting circles, sums of various series, solutions to quadratic equations, proportions, and the solution of indeterminate equations of the first degree. Acha. Brahmagupta described rules for 20 different arithmetic operations in his Brahmasphuta Siddhanta, written in 628 AD. Including a thorough investigation of triangles and quadrilaterals, he also discussed the mathematics of zero and of surds and indeterminate equations of the second degree. Brahmagupta gave only a partial solution to the latter problem. A complete solution by the cyclic method was given by Jayadeva, who is presumed to have lived in the 11th century. According to the historian Kajori, quote, the cyclic method constitutes the greatest invention in the theory of numbers before the time of Lagrange, end quote. Bhaskara's contributions in the 12th century, that is in the 1300 ADs, included elements of differential calculus predating Newton and Leibniz by more than 500 years. He also used integration to solve problems such as the volume of a sphere. The major mathematician after Bhaskara was Madhava during 1340 to 1425 of the Kerala school of astronomers and mathematicians, who obtained Taylor's series for sine and cosine functions up to second powers, the power series for sine and cosine functions usually credited to Newton and Leibniz, Gregory's series for inverse tangent and the Leibniz power series for pi. अच्छा, ये सब भास्करा ने कर दिया था 1340 to 1425 में. According to Kajuri, numerical symbolism, the science of numbers and algebra attained in India far greater perfection than they had previously reached in Greece. both the form and the spirit of the arithmetic and algebra of modern times are essentially Indian. Most studies of Indian mathematics, while acknowledging the above achievements, have failed to see its contribution to the scientific method. This is part, okay, 86 में बोल रहा है, तब से ये प्रॉब्लम उन्होंने रेज करना शुरू किया. आज हम 2023 में ये पढ़ के लग रहा है कि हाँ कितना रेलेवेंट है, कितना सच बात बोल रहा है. This is partly an accident of the times when ancient Indian mathematics came to be first examined in the West. It was the 19th century historians who found that, in contrast to the greatest concern of the mathematics of the day, Indian sources lacked in formalization and proof. Ancient Indian mathematics emphasized algorithms and computational techniques, which are constructive procedures. The 19th century historian did not consider computational issues. Therefore, many results which were derived by using novel procedures were forgotten as mathematical curiosities, जो कि आज के दिन में बाद में relevant हो गया 1980s में. Of course, one of the reasons why proofs were rarely found was the sutra style of all Indian scholarship, where each original text merely stated the conclusions or the theorems, and explanations were left to lesser, more descriptive works. Okay, then in the field of physics, देखते हैं वहाँ पे क्या हुआ. Okay, Shreyas Kalluri is saying we should try and test them. The ideas and methods given by rishis are maths, astronomy, medicine is very strong. In a first limelight में लाके yes करेंगे तो फ्यूचर इनका ही होगा. एग्जैक्टली उसके लिए हम लोगों को ये पेपर पब्लिकली डिस्कस करना पड़ेगा विदाउट गेटिंग कॉपीराइट स्ट्राइक्स. ओके, देन फिजिक्स. एटॉमिज्म in India is much older than Greek atomism. Yes, because कनाद ने वैशेषिका सूत्र में ये सब डिस्कस कर लिया था, जो कि विकिपीडिया में जाओ तो उसको बोलेगा कि वो फिलोसॉफी का बुक है. फिलोसॉफी का बुक में एटॉम डिस्कस हो गया था. तो एटॉमिज्म इन इंडिया इज मच ओल्डर देन ग्रीक एटॉमिज्म. ओ बाय द वे, वैशेषिका सूत्र का जो मेन सबसे पॉपुलर ट्रांसलेशन है अमेजोन में जाके अगर आप ढूंढोगे तो वो ट्रांसलेशन सुभाष काक का ही है, बिकॉज ही इज फ्लुएंट इन संस्कृत. Atomism in India is much older than Greek atomism. There were several schools with different models. The Vaisheshika school attributed the variety in nature. Okay, Vaisheshika Sutra वो school of thought ने कहा कि variety in nature is because of primary atoms combining into different kinds of molecules. The concept of motion or change was explained by the Buddhist philosophers as being a reflection of change going on continuously at the atomic level. They believed that each atom came into being and vanished almost in an instant, to be followed by another atom, and so on. This has similarity with the notion of quantum or modern physics. The cyclic cosmological model of Indians represented a generalization of the observations of periodic astronomical phenomena. This, coupled with a belief in strict determinism, addressed and resolved the problem of causality, perhaps the central problem of the scientific method, which is causality. Of course, a quantitative physics did not develop. The knowledge of mathematics necessary for such a development was adequate quite early on. So was the use of competing models to explain a given phenomenon. The subtle argumentation that was used to explain different implications of atomicity as well as notions of relativity, gravitation, and a universal law constitute profound achievements that are not always appreciated these days. वो 86 में बोल रहा है not appreciated in these days, हम 2023 में भी बोल रहे हैं कि not appreciated these days. The accounts of many modern writers have been vitiated by their curious errors of interpretation. For example, it is quite clear that as early as Aryabhatta, if not earlier, the correct understanding of eclipses was known. Yet several recent histories claim that Rahu and Ketu, concepts with significance in astrology but not astronomy, were invoked to explain eclipses. Similarly, it is asserted that demons were believed to push the planets in their motions, whereas Aryabhatta and others actually talk of motion as an intrinsic property of planets and stars. Okay, now in the field of physiology, medicine, and other sciences, let me just check some comments again. Islamist Marxist missionary. Yes. Okay, Rohan is saying, then imagine the situation of Sitaram Goel and Ram Swarup situation in the 60s time when they both decided to expose Islamist plus Marxist plus missionary nexus. इसलिए तो सीताराम गोयल को अपना खुद का publication house खोलना पड़ा, Voice of India. Today I found a research paper discussing Sitaram Goel's publication house Voice of India on JSTOR. Okay, she was writing that how this publication house has spread the evil message of Hindutva. Okay, this has similarity with the notion of quantum modern. Okay, now physiology, medicine, and other sciences. The fact that by the times of Charaka and Sushruta, the medicine system was fully evolved indicates a long tradition of inquiry and a use of the empirical method. This was true of surgery as well, which was developed far ahead of its time. And today, the video that I uploaded in my criticism of Sanjeev Sanyal, वहाँ पे वो बंदा भी बहुत हंस रहा था कि सुश्रुता को कहा इतना क्रेडिट दे दिया. Chemistry was used essentially to formulate drugs. Indian metallurgists were greatly skilled in metal extraction and casting, and their products were valued in the Middle East and Europe. Yeah. A mere cataloging. Okay, this I keep forgetting the name of a sword. एक बहुत फेमस स्वॉर्ड टाइप था जो कि क्रिश्चियंस और मुस्लिम्स में मिडल ईस्ट और यूरोप में वो बवाल करने में काम आता था. वो स्वॉर्ड का मेटल भी इंडिया से ही जाता था एंड प्रोबेबली वो इंडिया में बनाया भी जाता था. I don't remember the name. It's a very famous kind of sword. A mere cataloging of achievements in the various scientific disciplines does not tell us about a philosophy of knowledge, especially because there was considerable intercourse amongst the ancient civilizations. Okay, see how this point is relevant in the way we have been taught about our freedom fighters as well, haven't we? When I first learnt of Sri Aurobindo's achievements in J. Sai Deepak's second book, India, Bharat, Pakistan, I realized that all my life I had thought that Sri Aurobindo is some random revolutionary, इधर उधर थोड़ा बम मारते फिरता था, फिर बाद में जाकर डर के ऋषि बन गया पौंडीचेरी में छुप के बैठ के. इंडिया भारत पाकिस्तान में जाके पता चला पढ़ के कि अरे लाल बाल पाल का नाम सुनते थे. Sri Aurobindo was absolutely equivalent of Lal Bal Pal, if not in some cases ahead of Lal Bal Pal in diagnosing problems and trying to solve some problems. Okay. I think उनका नाम वहाँ पे नहीं घुसाया गया कि it doesn't rhyme with Lal Bal Pal, or maybe Aurobindo Institute, because of surviving in a communist state, they had to modify their rhetoric as well. But what is the other thing that you come away with after passing out of school, and if you don't pursue history further, which is that all these revolutionary activities were random here and there. And after reading that here in India, Bharat, Pakistan, after that Sanjeev Sanyal's book Revolutionaries came out, and during the promotion of that book, Sanjeev Sanyal goes around saying that we have been taught in a way that we feel like all these were random acts. And then I thought that that is exactly what came to my mind when I first learnt of Sri Aurobindo's actions. But they were not random. All of them knew each other. It was a sort of an integrated system. They knew what each other were doing. They were planning other things. They were sending support, etc. But it's described and designated by the moderates who took over the power structures as random acts of revolution and bomb throwing, etc. And in 1986, Subhash Kak here is arguing the exact same thing. A mere cataloging, sirf ek listing of achievements in the various scientific disciplines does not tell us about a philosophy of knowledge, especially because there was considerable intercourse amongst the ancient civilization. And who is to say that methods in mathematics and astronomy, physiology and medicine and the other sciences were not borrowed from the Greeks, the Chinese or the Babylonians? What one needs to establish is a clear plan of development for which the actual achievements can be directly related. If this plan of development was unique and no parallels to it have been found in Babylon, Greece and China, then we would have added important evidence to the view that the development of science in India was essentially autonomous, and tracings of borrowings from it by the other civilizations should be carefully investigated. Okay, this is the end of a small subchapter. Let me check something. Okay, linguist is saying our Adi Shankaracharya, Shiv Avatar of Advait Vedant Darshan, has always recited Upanishad verse Brahm Satyam Jagat Mithya. I see. Which is similar to Nobel physics. The universe is not locally. अरे मेरा ना वो heart emoji ये message के ऊपर दिखा रहा है, so I can't see the message entirely. Okay, that universe is not located. Okay, message अभी तक पूरा नहीं आया है. Okay, then Rohan is saying, please visit in tribal areas, especially districts in Purulia, Bakura, Jhargram and West Midnapur. You'll understand. Damascus steel sword. Yes, Arnab Chakraborty. Damascus. Exactly that sword. Nice. I love my audience who know most things better than me. Okay, now the next subchapter. Many reconstructions of Indian sciences have been based on assumptions that are being shown to have been unwarranted. In many cases, the traditional view of events has been upheld by new scholarship. Let us review some of the new evidence. 1. It has long been assumed that the Aryans arrived in India after the decline of the Harappan civilization around 2000 BC, and they might in fact have been partially responsible for its destruction. 2. It has also been assumed that the Aryans were in constant conflict with the Dravidians and subdued them eventually. 3. Most importantly, it has been assumed that evidence for Indian science should be sought in the Aryan traditions only. There are several difficulties with these assumptions. There appears to be a considerable Dravidian influence on Vedic Sanskrit that has been argued forcefully by F.B.J. Kulper. The theory that the Dravidian is related somewhat to the Finno-Ugrian group, which was first proposed by Robert Caldwell more than 130 years ago, is gaining new adherents, and recently its connections to Basque and Elamite have been argued. Okay, Robert Caldwell कौन है पता है? वो क्रिश्चियन मिशनरी तमिलनाडु का, जिसने ये सब पहले शुरू में फैलाया था, एंड इसी ने आई थिंक बोला था कि जीसस वाज आल्सो हिंदू, या फिर हिंदुइज्म इज अ संप्रदाय फ्रॉम अ ब्रेक अवे फ्रॉम क्रिश्चियनिटी, ऐसा कुछ बोला था. And he is basically the father of all the mass conversions in entire southern India. ये है वो Robert Caldwell. This leads to two possibilities. First, that the Dravidians themselves entered India from the west and they are most closely related to the South Iranians or Elamites. Second, they are amongst the original inhabitants of India from where they have spread to the Mediterranean and elsewhere. In either case, they must have interacted with the Harappans and perhaps contributed to that civilization. The Panis, who figure as wealthy traders in the Rigveda, have been identified by some with the Harappans, a suggestion first made by D.D. Kosambi. Since the Panis have also been identified with the Phoenicians by some scholars, it leaves open the possibility that the Phoenicians and the Harappans were the same people. Oh wow. So Southeast Asian and island tribes basically. हाँ, समुंदर से अगर यह वहाँ जाते, might be a possibility. It's not really it does not really have academic consensus, but might be a fun theory. The Panis were often portrayed as the antagonists of the Aryans. There is also evidence that the two made peace, for example in Rigveda 6:45. Okay, so here the argument is that Aryans were not the Rigveda people. I see. So because Panis are the elites mentioned in Rigveda, and they are in conflict with Aryans apparently. Okay. In 1986 में क्या क्या सब theory था, suggesting that constructive interaction between the various groups must have existed. The term Arya itself seems to have lost its racial connotation, if it ever had one, very early on, and certainly by the time of Manav Dharma Shastra, there existed provisions for the incorporation of foreigners into the Aryan fold. The word denoted merely a belief in a worldview. And yes, Arya means basically someone who is very educated, has nice behavior, speaks in a very clean language. That's Arya. But it was not always the case. It did start out as defining the out group. हम Arya है, तुम नहीं हो, तुम अनार्य हो. But it later turned out to be कि ठीक है, जो भी educated है, अच्छा काम करता है, because meritocracy का जगह हो ही जाता है जब कोई civilization reaches critical mass of great intelligence and philosophy and then economic prosperity. Okay, जैसे कि आज USA में होता है. It is reasonable to assume, therefore, that the Harappans, the Dravidians, and the Aryans, while going through periods of conflict, coexisted constructively, giving rise to a common heritage that reflects the accomplishments of each of these streams. Yes, I like this theory. This is what I've been realizing ever since I read the Vedic Rudra to Shiva transition, that अच्छा अगर ये सब हुआ भी है तो कौन सा बड़ा भयंकर चीज हो गया. ये all of these still only propagate the view that we all lived in harmony. Each of these streams. My own attempt at the decipherment of the Harappan script seems to uphold this view. इसने खुद बैठ के 1980s में हड़प्पन स्क्रिप्ट ट्रांसलेट करने का फैसला ले लिया. अजीब आदमी है. It is corroborated by later hymns of the Rigveda, including those to Rudra, who appears to have been worshipped in Harappa as well. वो योगी तो उसका जो साइन है ही अब हड़प्पा में. In fact, the synthesis of the later hymns of the Rigveda transcends the blood and fury of the earlier hymns and represents a worldview, the Aryan worldview maybe, that might have been essentially Harappan. In any event, it appears that one should reconsider evidence in astronomical tables, the epics, and even the Rigveda that points to epochs earlier, significant occurrences earlier than 1500 BC, which has hitherto been dismissed as deliberate interpolations introduced much later. Okay, yeah. 86 में भी वो इनको यही प्रॉब्लम था, यही काउंटर करना पड़ रहा था. Okay, let me check some comments. Ninad is saying, according to Conrad Els, those who wrote the Vedas were just one tribe of many in UP Haryana. The out group like Asura or Ahuras, yeah, were made to migrate westward, who became Zoroastrians. Yeah, might very as well be. And someone definitely was kicked out who became the Yamnas, who went and invaded Ireland also, right? Because ye jo, see all these 4 white books, that's a fictional fantasy series I read, which is based on Celtic mythology, and there I have found countless examples and evidences of it seeming like they're talking about someone who was kicked away from a different land and they have come here, and they call it the banished lands because they were banished from somewhere else, and their cultures have a lot of similarities, and in fact they have some language similarities as well. You won't believe it, I have forgotten to talk about this all these while. There is a sentence in Welsh or Gaelic, which were the Celtic languages, which according to Abhijit Chavra's theory are because of they are descendants of the Yamna tribes who were kicked out from here because of being too violent or maybe something else or some evil crap. So there's a sentence called it has something to do with I will kill you, I want to kill you, and there both these words are there, that tu maru. Okay, tu is you and maru is killing you. Insane, right? Ireland, Wales, Gaelic languages mein, whose descendant are the French, the Gauls, who tried to unite as a civilization in front of Julius Caesar's invasion. They have words like tu and maru, which describes the same concept as killing you. Okay, so for the lack of any extensive written records, the scientific contributions of the Harappans, maybe 2500 to 1800 BC, can only be surmised. The artifacts that have come down to us have led to a very positive assessment of their technology. The great extent over which these artifacts have been found suggests that technical professions were an integral part of the social structure, obviously, suggesting further that the scientific ideas behind these professions must have been widely understood. Okay, and another thing I forgot to mention, which I had described in my discussed in my community tab as well, that those Celtic people, उनके जो प्रीस्ट्स थे उनको ड्रूइड्स बोला जाता था. तो ड्रूइड्स के बारे में ज़्यादा कुछ एविडेंस है नहीं. ऑल टोटल शायद 10-12 पेज का ही डिस्क्रिप्शन है, क्योंकि उनमें भी वो सेम प्रॉब्लम था. ये लोग खुद के बारे में ज़्यादा बकते नहीं थे. तो जो ड्रूइड्स के बारे में हम जानते हैं वो ज़्यादातर जूलियस सीजर के राइटिंग से आता है. वो लोग ड्रूइड्स को डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं, एंड देयर in terms of their practices and their belief systems, transmigration, which means your soul, after you die, your soul going to another body, etc. ये सब concepts are exactly like the Vedic belief systems, okay, except human sacrifice. So since Yamna tribe को अगर यहाँ से लात मार के भगाया गया होगा, तो वो तो ऐसा नहीं है कि 3 दिन बाद सीधा आयरलैंड पहुँच गए. वहाँ जाने में भी 500, 600 या 1000 साल लग गए थे होंगे. Which is why the river goddess Danu is worshipped by Celts, and Danu के नाम से यहाँ वहाँ पे यूक्रेन में भी जगह है, दानूबे, डॉनबास, वो same words variations है. तो obviously they would have picked up other cultural and faith systems distortions or influences in their beliefs as well. So human sacrifice कहाँ से आया कौन जाने. But rest of it, Druids and Brahmins seem exactly the same to me. Do some reading up on Druids. You will find, we'll do a paper, discuss a paper on Druids as well to see how similar they are with Brahmins. Okay, so according to the Alicans, that the technical level achieved over so great an area, as is demonstrated in the Harappan civilization, is probably unique in the ancient world. But Marxist को बोलना है कि it's a lost culture, पता नहीं कहाँ चले गए भोसड़ी वाले. The relative primitiveness of the weapons of the Harappans and the extensive trade with peoples in the Middle East, as well as to their north and east, indicate that they were a nation concerned primarily with production and trade. Their wealth is attested by their sophisticated town planning, obviously. हाँ, मगर क्योंकि wealth नहीं है तो town planning का कहाँ से पैसा, दिमाग, time कुछ आएगा. Furthermore, if the identification of Tilmun or Dilmun or Sindhu of the Sumer documents with Harappa is correct. Damn, I did not know about this theory. If that is correct, then this was the country of gods and of fabulous wealth to the Sumerians. We shall comment only on the weight systems of the Harappans. John Marshall was struck by the extraordinary profusion of stone weights at Mohenjo-daro. The weight system has been found to have striking accuracy with gradations independent of any other. The standard unit of weight in the Harappan system is approximately 13.64 grams, 64 grams, which in turn corresponds to a standard unit of 16. The weights proceed in a series 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, which then goes to 160, 320, 640, 1600, 3200, 6400, 8000 and 1,28,000. On the island of Bahrain, the weights found include the units 200, 800, 1600. In conformity with this scheme, Bahrain tak, the system of Ur and Sumer was different to the system, which adds to the identification of Tilmun and its colony, Bahrain, with the Harappan world. So you see, they have a different accounting system. So it does not have to be that we were taking all of that from them or they were coming here and enriching us with their knowledge. उनका खुद का सिस्टम था, हमारा खुद का सिस्टम था, बट विच वॉज डिस्क्राइब्ड बाई देम, क्योंकि हमारा ये व्लॉगिंग करने का नशा नहीं था. दैट इज आवर ओनली प्रॉब्लम. In any event, the system of weights, when represented in terms of the standard unit of 16, gives 1 by 16, 1 by 8, 1 by 4, 1 by 2, 1, 2, 4, 10, 20, 40, 100, etc., which is a mixed binary decimal system, which is a mixed binary / decimal system. It is significant that essentially the same system remained in usage in India till recent times. It is not known what knowledge of astronomy the Harappans possessed. The extensive domain of the Harappans suggests that they might have used astronomical phenomena for navigation and overland travel. What is needed is a systematic study of the Harappan ruins to see whether some of their buildings might have served as astronomical observatories. 1986 में लिख रहा है, सुनेगा कौन? हम तो कार्ल मार्क्स की किताब पढ़ रहे थे. Okay. Linguist Missing Shayanacharya of Vijayanagara commentary is the first full 4 Veda manuscript of Dravidians were more faithful to Vedic Hindu religion. I see. Nice. Okay. One thing I want to mention, someone in the comment section a few days back had said that when I was discussing that Manusmriti seems to be pretty distorted and full of later interpolations, whereas Arthashastra seems to be very intact and seems very coherent and not at all contradictory with any Vedic or Manusmriti teachings, okay, or Vedic teachings. Because my argument was that because the Arthashastra manuscript was found in Tamil Nadu, where Islamic invasions did not happen. So in reference to that, someone had said that the Rigveda or all the Vedas, on the other hand, wherever their manuscripts are, they are pretty same everywhere all across India. And that I realized even yesterday. I have a friend who is Bengali, but she grew up in Gujarat, so she's studying the Rigveda in Hindi. She's reading the Hindi translation. So she asked me about a translation of one particular Shukta from my Bengali translation of the Rigveda. And when she read it out to me, I found out that it's the exact same translation that I'm reading in Bengali. Okay, there's no distortion, no ambiguity there. जो हिंदी में है वही मैं बंगाली में पढ़ रहा हूँ. और बंगाली का जो ट्रांसलेशन है वो 1800s में किया गया था. वो हिंदी वाला कब किया गया है मुझे एग्जैक्ट पता नहीं है. एंड बोथ ऑफ देम ऑब्वियसली हैव देयर रेस्पेक्ट्स फॉर शायनाचार्य एज वेल, के वो लोग डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि या ये थ्योरी हो सकता है और शायनाचार्य जी ने ये कहा है, एंड देन दे गेट अहेड विद द ट्रांसलेशन. बट इट्स almost word for word. It would seem like my Bengali translation is done from the Hindi translation or the other way around, but it's not. Both of them are translated from the Sanskrit manuscript itself, but it's absolutely same. Okay. Now, next subchapter. The Rigvedic phase, which is probably 2000 to 1200 BC, has been commented upon extensively in the reconstructions of the science of ancient India, but I believe it has generally been misinterpreted. There are verses in it that refer to elementary astronomical phenomena. Some have ascribed these to the influence of the Babylonians. हाँ, हमने सीखा, Babylonians ने आके हमें सिखाया. But there is really no evidence for that. I believe that the most significant fact about the Rigveda is its insight into the nature of knowledge, which is quite modern, because the very first mandala ka very first shukta starts with oblations to Gyanagni. Om Agnimile Purohitang. और पुरोहितस्य, वो वाला. It starts with paying respects to Gyan and Gyanagni. Okay. The most significant fact about the Rigveda is its insight into the nature of knowledge, which is quite modern. This is expressed not only in the questioning that is at the heart of the creation hymn, Nasadya, amongst others, but also in the paradoxes that form the framework within which several incidents and statements are painted. It is for this reason, rather than its mythology, that the Rigveda has been venerated through the centuries. It has been respected through the centuries. Many interpreters have missed this point and consequently been puzzled by the fact that the gods of the hymns have long been considered to be mere supernumeraries, and yet the book is taken to be a source of knowledge. ये कैसे हो गया? अगर ये सिर्फ हाँ भगवान आप कितने अच्छे हैं ये सब बोलने का बुक है, तो उसको नॉलेज बुक की तरह इस सोसाइटी में क्यों कंसिडर किया जा रहा है? That is where Subhash is giving his explanation. Okay, as expressed so well by Wendy of Laharty, the riddles in the Rigveda do not have, nor are they meant to have, answers. They are not merely rhetorical, but are designed to present one half of a Socratic dialogue, through which the reader becomes aware of the inadequacy of his certain knowledge. अगर तुम्हारा कोई certainty है regarding some knowledge, the Rigveda will make you think a little harder. The Rigveda may be said to have three different layers, one of pure poetry, another of myth, and most important of all, a layer that deals with the interpretation of the universe. The emphasis on natural repetitive phenomena, as well as a reduction of these to numbers, signifies already the most important step in the development of science. There is, furthermore, an expression of the belief that speech and word can be used to represent the reality of the universe. In the famous hymn, the elements of sacrifice or Asya Vamasya, Dirghatamas expresses this as that the one with capital O, because it's being spoken about the supreme consciousness, the one has risen up, holding up three mothers and three fathers who never wear him down. On the back of the distant sky they speak of speech, who knows all but does not move all. The 12-spoked wheel of order rolls around and around the sky and never ages. Okay, व्हील का डिस्कवरी बेबीलोनिया में और मेसोपोटामिया में हुआ था बोलते हैं, मगर यहाँ पे व्हील ऑलरेडी डिस्क्राइब हो गया है. The three mothers and three fathers may refer to six directions, but clearly here as well elsewhere there is a reference to the absolute and how the mind or speech can comprehend it without affecting it. Other aspects, that is the idea of ISKCON as well, right? That just why do they focus so much on just chanting the name of Krishna? Because the argument of the Krishna consciousness movement is that you imagine Krishna and you conceptualize Krishna. If you do that so many times in the day, when you chant Krishna's name, that something so perfect, so beautiful, so devoid of all flaws, that kind of maybe purifies your mind as well, or maybe just refreshes your mind before you sit down for some work. Okay. Other aspects of the vision of the Rigvedic rishis are summarized elsewhere in the same hymn. It says, "Whoever here knows his father beneath what is above and above what is beneath, who with such mystical insight can here proclaim the source from which the mind of God was born?" aha, प्रश्न से यहाँ पे बात शुरू हो रहा है कि कौन बोल सकता है, who knows, कौन ऐसा झंडा गाड़ के आया होगा. Don't be so arrogant. That is the essence here. Those that are in the future, they say, are in the past. Those that are in the past, they say, are in the future. Two birds, friends joined together, clutch the same tree. One of them eats the sweet fruit. The other looks on without eating. अरे रॉबर्ट ब्राउनिंग का कविता लग रहा है. The birds that eat honey nest and brood on that tree on whose tip they say is the sweetest fruit. No one who does not know the Father eats that. The Father, obviously, Supreme Consciousness. The worldview present in the synthesis of the Rigvedic sages that has three elements. First, nature works according to its own immutable laws. Second, it is knowable by the mind, though all representations of it in rational terms lead to paradox. Third, To comprehend nature, one needs to look into the structure of the mind itself. Also, the mind has two aspects. One representing reflection of the absolute, as in the story of the birds, and the other embodying ordinary consciousness. Yeah. वो इसलिए श्री अरबिंदो के बुक क्या नाम है उसके बुक का, अरे मेरा बुक कहाँ गया, हाँ, लाइफ डिवाइन, माइंड एंड सुपर माइंड, हाई माइंड, लो माइंड, ऐसे टर्म्स यूज किए गए हैं. वाओ, I'm glad I started this paper, huh? Pretty fascinating stuff. Okay. One realizes that the first two elements of this synthesis are identical to the conclusions accepted by most contemporary philosophers of science. These two ideas were also expressed later by the exponents of the Sankhya school, the Pythagoreans, and others. The third element is the additional dimension which makes the Indian approach to the world mystical and unique. In fact, all subsequent philosophical systems of India merely elaborate this worldview of the Rigveda. Whenever the priest forgot the message of the Rigveda and emphasized only the ritual, it led to movements which ostensibly rejected the authority of the Rigveda. But as one can see by studying such heterodox movements such as Buddhism and Jainism, their synthesis was no different to that of the Rigveda. और ये सुन के तो अम्बेडकराइट्स का तो जो झाट जो गरम होगा. Not all portions of the Rigveda deal with paradoxes, reality and knowledge. There are hymns that are more adorations of gods. It also has material on worldly life, legends, wars, on living and dying. But as reality constitutes these elements as well, the conservative Indian sages decided to retain this material. हाँ, ये भी रख लेते हैं, थोड़ा सा documentation करते हैं. A correct understanding of the Rigveda requires a consideration of its contents within this framework. Okay. This is a nice diagnosis, huh? So he's saying this is a framework. The framework being the absolute and the embodying of ordinary consciousness. Nice. Of this framework. One needs to transcend a literal meaning of the hymns so that the different gods become merely potentialities of one's mind. The gods are not some random old guy sitting up in the sky. They are the potentialities of the mind. Of क्या लिखा है? Unfortunately, most Western interpreters have missed this point. 86 में बोल रहा है, हम 2023 में सेम चीज को लेकर कंप्लेन कर रहे हैं. Nice paper. Unfortunately, most Western interpreters have missed this point and, taking the worship of gods as the primary concern of the hymns, wondered how sages and scholars through the centuries could have considered the Rigveda to be a compendium of unique insights and wisdom. Kyunki they are looking at it from the lens of Abrahamic faiths. Coloniality. The development of the Upanishads, the 6 systems of philosophy, as well as Indian science and medicine, can be seen as a natural amplifications of the insights of the Rigveda. He's saying whatever has been done later they are just simply building upon whatever was discussed in Rigveda, or whatever ideas that were born in the Rigveda. The materialists, such as the Charvakas, अरे हमारा कुशल भाई, accepted only the first 2 premises of the Vedic synthesis. They were thus outside the great tradition of the Indian belief system. I see. Okay. Before the start of the next subchapter, let me check some comments. Please don't announce your credential. Knowledge has power. Yes. भाई एक टू zoom करो ना. J store इतने के बेशी zoom है ना. Meanwhile, Arabs, after finding a Maharshi Panini grammar book, Allah, Para and Apara Vidya, right? Vidya and Avidya. As Beyonce is saying, even in Sikhism, chanting of name and names are important. Many Sikh gurus were part of Vaishnavas. Are bapre. The one Bengal and Western India connection I know of is that the Pal dynasty, they had once conquered something, some regions in Haryana, I think, or Bengal up till Haryana, which is why Pal is a common surname. Not common. It's some people, some Punjabis, some Sikhs do have the surname Pal, or which is more common is that they add the Pal with the name and then they add Singh later on. But the Pal dynasty, the Buddhism propagating, Buddhism encouraging Pal dynasty did have some footing in Western India as well. Please read my comment. Okay, Binay Singh का comment देखते हैं कहाँ गया. Vinay saying the fact that Manusmriti mentioned different types of fort doesn't prove that they were superior to Indian military fort. Go watch AIM video on Kushal Mehra channel. Okay. Dada, if India was so scientifically ahead, then why our military architecture was so behind than European military architecture? Yes, just look at Pratapgarh Fort of Shivaji Maharaj and Star Fort of Europe. Yes, because see, cyclical time का meaning क्या है कि आज जो चीज़ अच्छा है, आज कहीं पे अगर कुछ अच्छा चीज़ हो रहा है, वहाँ पे फिर विनाश होगा ही होगा, फिर वहाँ पे कहीं ना कहीं अच्छे चीज़ होंगे. ओके, good times will come, they will create weak men will come and create bad times will create strong men will again create good times. ये होगा ही, बार बार हुआ है, बार बार भी होगा. अभी हमारा 8% GDP ग्रोथ भी हमेशा नहीं रहेगा, ठीक है. अभी यूएसए का हाल देखो आज. तो जस्ट बिकॉज in the 1990s or the 1500s 1600s our country and this land was going through bad times does not mean that we never had a good time before that, because that would be the linear way of thinking about time, right? That अच्छा, एक चीज़ शुरू हुआ, अच्छा होना शुरू हुआ, अब अच्छा होते जाएगा और सिर्फ अच्छाई की तरफ ही जाते रहेगा और ख़त्म नहीं, उसका कोई अच्छाई ख़त्म ही नहीं होगा, वो सिर्फ बेटरमेंट की तरफ ही जाएगा. ऐसा नहीं होता है. सब कोई पॉपुलेशन में, सब कोई देश में कोई ना कोई उठ के किसी ना किसी दिन एरोगेंट बनेगा ही और फिर वो स्क्रू अप करेगा ही और उसका देश गड्ढे में जाएगा ही जाएगा. सी, लास्ट फ्यू डेज बैक शेखर गुप्ता डिड अ फैंटास्टिक डिस्कशन ऑफ अ सर्वे of what people are thinking about Narendra Modi. Okay, the name of the video is, I think, that Rahul Gandhi is challenging Modi. So the basic thesis of the video is that राहुल गांधी का पॉपुलैरिटी 1-2% बढ़ा है और मोदी का पॉपुलैरिटी 1% कम हुआ है. बट उसके उस सर्वे में एक सर्वे मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा, which is it was showing that it's a pretty well done survey, because there was lots of data points, and there was room for a lot of comparisons with 2014, 2019 and 2023. Okay, so the number of people who are saying that poverty is their biggest problem and Modi can do something about it, so that was different in 2014. Way less people were saying that poverty is their biggest problem and way more people were saying that Modi can solve all problems. Then in 2019, some more people started saying that poverty is really a big problem and Modi is doing a little worse of a job. And in 2023, even more people are saying that poverty is a bigger problem and Modi is not really doing a great job. So you see, people will always lack perspective. इन 9 सालों में देश 10th लार्जेस्ट जीडीपी से 5th लार्जेस्ट जीडीपी हो गया और लोगों को लग रहा है कि पॉवर्टी और बढ़ रहा है. सो यू सी, पीपल आर इनहेरेंटली, मोस्ट पीपल आर पुसीज एंड दे विल नॉट स्टॉप कंप्लेनिंग नो मैटर व्हाट यू गिव टू देम. ओके, नाउ आई विल स्टार्ट द नेक्स्ट सब चैप्टर. लेट मी हैव अ सिप ऑफ माय जूस. So Bina, that's the answer. I'm saying that at some point India was doing the best shit in the world. Then we screwed up for a various number of reasons. Arrogance, pussiness, Islamic invasions, who knows what else. But that does not mean कि इसलिए उसके पहले वाला सब कुछ भूल जाए और या फिर नहीं हुआ था. That's not the case. It's all cyclical. Okay. Vaheguru is Vishnu, Krishna, Rama. We see that in Dasam Granth of Sikhs. I see. The main problem is very humid heat. It decreases productivity. वो भी है. I have some info on BJP activities. Send it on Insta. Don't want to start a political riot. Okay. Maybe military architecture was not too much in focus because Indian religions were inward looking instead of expansionary religions. हाँ, ये तो हमेशा का problem है. So when conquering was not a goal, then focus on military was less. That was not the case during Chanakya's time again, because his one of his main ways, suggestions to improve your economy is invasions and annexations. But his first suggestion is that when you invade a country, first and foremost you go and learn their culture and join the processions, join their celebrations. The king is supposed to do that. तुमने इन्वेड इसलिए नहीं किया कि वहाँ पे जाके सबको मार देना है. तुमने इसलिए इन्वेड किया कि वहाँ का टैक्स भी तुम्हारे पास आए और वहाँ का लोग भी तुम्हारे साथ एकदम अच्छा से रहे. Invasion is a different concept in Arthashastra. Okay. Now, the belief that numbers or a quantitative description could represent physical phenomena was explicitly stated in Sankhya, which also proclaimed a theory of evolution where life evolves from matter. The philosophy of Sankhya is extolled several times in the Bhagavad Gita and it is mentioned in the Upanishads as well. According to Sankhya, nature evolves by an inherent property of matter. Intelligence, consciousness, as well as the capacity to perceive the world are taken to have evolved from matter itself. While the original exposition was concerned more with the mind than with physics, it is clear that the entire evolution of the world is viewed in totally scientific terms, being totally outside the whims and fancies, mercy and anger of God or his representatives. The essence of, so it's basically a great framework inside which science as we understand it today, even that can flourish. Which is why most of our scientists from the 20th century, 19th century have been devout Hindus. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads and similar works is that the way to a meaningful life is the way of knowledge, directed toward a comprehension, understanding of this reality. It is claimed that this can be done by intellectual discipline, by action, or by sharpening one's sensations and feelings that help one transcend the realm of ordinary consciousness to reach that aspect of the mind which mirrors the absolute, meaning तुम्हारा mind has to become the pratibimb of that supreme consciousness. It should be noted that this is actually a secular message. The other important assumption required to develop science also arose very early, and this was the atomic doctrine of the Vaisheshika school, Pukudha Katyayana, an older contemporary of Buddha, taught an atomic doctrine much before Democritus. The Vaisheshika school, which was formalized by Kanada, analyzed the notion of atomicity very logically and pointed to several paradoxes to which it offered its own resolutions. It is significant that in the 6 systems of philosophy, Vaisheshika was paired with Nyaya or logic. Yeah, look at this. 6 systems of philosophy, उसमें logic है, न्याय है और atom का discussion है. This was owing to his atomic doctrine being complementary to logic, in the sense that logic attempts to explain the world through the analysis of atomic statements. It may be asserted therefore that the ancient Indians had already developed a mature scientific method by the time of the Buddha. कोई अगर नव बुद्ध देख रहा है तो उसको तो बहुत गुस्सा आएगा ये देख के. Wow. So also you can see how this might work as a motivation or motivational speech for you as well, right? Imagine the life of this guy. He has done his PhD in 1970. So in 1986, what is his age? He's living in USA. He's a full-time professor and is working in some company as well, I think, as far as I remember. And he has a family. उसके अलावा ये बैठ के ये सब रिसर्च कर रहा है, ट्रांसलेट कर रहा है, उसमें पेपर लिख रहा है 1986 में, जबकि उतना कन्वीनियंस भी नहीं था ये सब करने का. सब बुक पढ़ के. Descriptions of various phenomena starting from an atomic principle were begun in the Upanishadic age itself. These descriptions were tried in the areas of physics, physiology, astronomy, language, cognition, logic and mathematics, as well as other domains. The debate that led to the development of Panini's celebrated grammar was expressed by the schools of Gargya and Shakatayana, 2 ancient philosophers. Are Gorgo Chatterjee. Shakatayana considered that nouns were derived from verbs or verbal roots, a principle whose universality was challenged by Gargya on the basis that it often led to a forced etymology. According to Gargya, if Ashva or horse was derived from Ash, which means to travel, then other beings that travelled would also be called Ashva, and states of being would be antecedent to objects. Since objects can be associated with a variety of actions, Garga's objection was true. However, the significance of Shakatayana's claim was to consider the object name to be derived from some arbitrarily chosen primary action based with it. हाँ, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं पे तो rigidity लाना ही है, नहीं तो सिर्फ सब तो moral relativism हो जाएगा. Panini, in his famous grammar, developed Shakatayana's position with the difference that he considered some words to be ready-made stems, into whose formation he did not go. Panini's successors continued this tradition. A precise semantic analysis along these lines was developed by the school of new grammarians started in the early 16th century by Bhattoji Dikshita. Garga's position of considering nouns to be primary, together with the ideas from logic or Nyaya, led to eventually to the school of new logic or Navya Nyaya. The latter school was at its zenith, at its peak, in the 16th century, during the time of Raghunatha, Jai Shri Ram, 1475 to 1550. This school also developed a methodology for a precise semantic analysis of language. The two schools influenced each other, and it was recognized that, leaving aside the question of the focus being the noun or the verb, any system would have elements of both, a fact already assumed by Panini. And see, this is how Sanjeev Sanyal views the world. This is complexity theory. This is not like one thing leading to another, then that leading to another. It's a lot of things happening in tandem, influencing each other, leading to unintended consequences, etc. Dakshiputra Panini is believed to have lived during the 5th or 6th century BC. He was born in the town of Shalatura, modern Lahore, in northwest India. Lahore में ये सब हो रहा था. Dakshiputra Panini is believed to have lived during the 5th or 6th century BC. He was born in the town of Shalatura, modern Lahore, in northwest India. Panini's grammar Ashtadhyayi, the 8 chapters, deals ostensibly with the Sanskrit language. However, it is really a model for a universal grammar. Lahore mein. His book consists of a little under 4,000 rules and aphorisms. Panini's grammar attempts to completely describe Sanskrit as the spoken language of its time. Two important commentaries on his grammar, which are often studied along with it, are those by Katyayana and Patanjali, 2nd century BC. Its philosophical underpinnings were discussed in an important work in the 5th century AD by Bharat. यहाँ पे शायद spelling mistake है. If someone knows what this name is actually supposed to be, let me know in the comments. Okay. Bharat. No, I can't read this from here. There seems to be some spelling mistake. Okay, do you guys remember how Panini died? There are speculations that he was mauled by a lion, or he was taken away and eaten up by a lion. That's sad. Panini's grammar begins with, and Panini also, by the way, taught in Takshashila for a while. Panini's grammar begins with meta rules, or rules about rules, exactly, frameworks. To facilitate his description, he establishes a special technical language or meta language. This is followed by several sections on how to generate words and sentences starting from roots, as well as rules on transformations of structure. The last part of the grammar is a one-directional string of rules, where a given rule in the sequence ignores all the rules that follow, all the later rules that come after it. This anticipates in form and spirit by more than 2,500 years the idea of a computer program. Yeah, obviously. The structure of this part of Panini's grammar should rightly be termed the Panini machine. The algebraic character of Panini's rules was not appreciated in the West until very recently, when a search for such generative structures was popularized by Chomsky, Hamara Purana Dost, and others. Before this, in the 19th century, Panini's analysis of roots and suffixes had led to the founding of the subjects of comparative and historical linguistics. And do you all know, right, what happened with Richard Dawkins a few days back? Even he used to be a fan of Hinduism. अभी 2-3 साल बहुत वॉशिंगटन पोस्ट और न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स पढ़ के इन सबको लग रहा है कि यहाँ पे हिंदू फैशिज्म आ गया है. But that's the case with Chomsky as well. Even Chomsky is acknowledging these things. But today, if someone says that, hey, we want to teach these things in the university, or we are saying that we are proud of our lineage because of these things, then he will say that, yeah, to fascism ho gaya. That is the problem. See, India is the best place where actual secularism could have worked, where actual modernity could have worked. We gave these people chances. We gave them 75 years to sort out their shit. They did not do. They made the Waqf board, which is basically a variation of the Enemy Properties Act of Bangladesh. So अब क्या करें? अब सब कुछ हिंदुत्व के गार्ड में ही आना है. Panini's analysis of roots and suffixes had led to the founding of the subjects of comparative and historical linguistics. Often, the contributions of Panini and other grammarians have been viewed as if they arose in isolation. Again, see that same problem again. होलिस्टिक लर्निंग किसी का नहीं है, सबको लग रहा है हाँ रैंडम यहाँ पे एक पनिनी हो गया, वहाँ पे यहाँ पे कोई कुछ लिख लिया. This is a mistake. Panini's system required a commitment to the empirical method, as well as a deep understanding of the nature of science. To appreciate it, similar qualities are necessary. The honor that has been bestowed traditionally on Panini can be explained only by accepting that similar values have been shared by his readers. Exactly. If same values were not shared by his readers, why would he be so respected? Our examination of the Rigveda, Upanishads and the Gita bears out that conclusion. Patanjali's influential Yoga Sutra also contains a clear declaration of the power of intuition and reason. Okay, let me check some comments. Garga, actually Garga यहाँ पे आ गया. According to Dawkins, India is now far from secular beginning. Linguist Pani Pile. Yeah, Raghuvansham, I see. Exactly, but sadly some idiots now think Uttar Ramayan is prakshipt entirely, which is false. We have even Kalidasa wrote that. I see. Okay, nice discussion going on here. Okay, next subchapter. If one were to draw the outline of other developments that could be in the spirit of Panini's contribution, one could, amongst others, list the following. A study of the process of computation and manipulation of symbols, which is algebra. A study of the regularities in astronomical phenomena, as well as empirical studies of matter, living or inanimate. Varying success was achieved in these enterprises. It becomes plausible to believe, therefore, that the scientific knowledge that India processed at the time of Varahamihira and Aryabhatta could have all originated in India, as has been originally generally believed by Indians themselves. हमारा सिविलाइजेशनल मेमोरी का तो कुछ भी गुरुत्व नहीं है, कुछ भी इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं है. हम क्या बोले वो जाए भाड़ में. अगर हार्वर्ड का कोई मार्क्सिस्ट बोले तभी है हमारा कुछ चीज़ हमारा है एक्चुअली, नहीं तो सब कुछ तो वो बिरयानी हो जाएगा. तो सिविलाइजेशनल मेमोरी का जो इतना लेस इंपॉर्टेंस है मार्क्सिस्ट का, ये बहुत ही फनी है, बहुत क्रीपी है, बहुत रॉन्ग भी है. इसके लिए दे ऑलवेज कम अप विथ सच स्टूपिड सॉल्यूशंस टू प्रॉब्लम्स, and they come up with solutions, most of which are solutions to problems they have created themselves. As has been generally believed by Indians themselves. This needs mention because many recent historians have, without justification, looked elsewhere for the beginnings of Indian science. और ये 1986 का पेपर है. That is so shameful. The cyclic theory of cosmic evolution, with its Mahayugas and Madhavantaras, can also be viewed within the framework of Indian science around the time of Panini. The periods of revolution of the known planets and the moon and the precessional period of the earth were multiplied together to yield a huge number that became the period of one great age. The intuition regarding conservation of matter and energy made it imperative that the universe go through endless cycles. The casting of calculating tables in the framework of such a model incorporating great ages, age means a yuga, ages required the solution of linear indeterminate equations. All this leads to the algebra of Aryabhatta and beyond. Okay, let me go on a bit of a pseudo-scientific tangent here. But ages, G और किस तरह pronounce होता है? G. Yuga, ages. Maybe it's a variation of yuga, agas or something, aga, and maybe that turned out to be ages later on, who knows. In physiology and medicine, the Sankhya notion of the three gunas was the basis of the doctrine of humors, and humors is known as dosha. In certain fields of surgery, such as plastic surgery, Europe did not catch up with the techniques of the Indian surgeons until the 18th century. Marxist को तो trigger कर देगा ये सब. Ever since the synthesis of the Rigveda, Indian scientists have been primarily interested in perception. Therefore, sciences dealing with the mind, such as logic, language, mathematics, and psychology, developed much more than the physical sciences. This emphasis on cognition gives a unique flavor to Indian scholarship and explains why Indian thinkers, using logic and intuition alone, were able to guess several properties of matter that have been proved correct by the theories of modern physics. In cognitive sciences, A proper understanding of the contributions of India is only beginning. We do not know what wonders may be in store for us in the untranslated manuscripts lying in temples and libraries. And this is also one of the biggest reasons why Indians produce such great scientists or people in the tech sector. Okay, हमारा basic cognitive capability, हमारा basic thinking pattern, okay, हमारा basic premises, understanding the world around us is absolutely beautiful and way superior than other people. By that I mean that see, when people have academic rigor, that is people who are good in general studies etc., उस सब में तो हर जगह का ही लोगों का थोड़ा बहुत सिमिलर कंपटीशन रहेगा ही. ओके, इफ हार्वर्ड लेट्स से हैज 50 गाइज, ओके, एंड उसमें से हर देश का आदमी है, तो उन लोगों में ज़्यादा डिफरेंस नहीं है. बट what is the lower middle class and lower class doing in a particular country? How stupid or intelligent are they? In that case, India and the Hindu civilization is extremely superior, I think. And there are enough ways to justify that statement as well. But the general knowledge, the general intelligence of India and Hindus is way higher than the general knowledge of lower middle class and lower classes of other places. What a great paper, huh? Dada looks everywhere but the camera. We need elephant-shaped tanks, lol. I want to bestow an upadhi to Dada. Let me know if you agree. Samanada Rishi. Okay. Unfortunately, I don't know what Samanada means. Dawkins is afraid of the condition of Rushdie, so he decided to make lines on us. Yes, people are going and saying Jai Shri Ram and blowing up planes as if. ये false equivalency का addiction इनका जाएगा नहीं. अच्छा, यहाँ पे एक हुआ, इसके वैसा ही है. That is the Marxist or atheist problem. Those who do criticize Islam as well, if you want these people to criticize Islam, then तुमको ये caveat accept करना पड़ेगा फिर तब हिंदुइज्म को भी criticize करेंगे. नहीं तो कि इस्लाम तो हमको बिरयानी दिया etc. मगर अगर इस्लाम खराब है तब हिंदुइज्म भी खराब है. That is their argument. Ages is derived from avam, Latin, which is similar to the age ayu, not yuga. I see. Nice. Neeraj is doing some great googling here. Okay, this is some phenomenal paper. This was a fun experience. Let's start the next paper. This is a little shorter paper, and then we'll do the extremely short papers. We are going in good speed. Now, Panini's grammar and computer science. Let's see what mysteries we unfold here. This is from 1991, okay? This paper is older than most of you people. Saroja Bhate and Subhash Kak. Saroja Bhate is a woman who is still alive. She is a professor of Sanskrit in some big university. And Subhash Kak is the guy bringing his scientific and computer knowledge to this paper. So this is a great collaboration here. Let me have a sip. Samananda, as in one who finds Ananda in Sama. Well maintained and Ananda. You already know. I see. Thank you. 1816 में एक ब्रिटिश सर्जन जेसी कार्कप उसके पुस्तक में लिखता है कि भारत के कुम्हार, yes, कुम्हार people, so called low caste, were doing plastic surgery. नवबुद्ध को बोलो. Okay, let's see what are the relations between Panini's grammar and computer science. Introduction. The enterprise of computer science has two fundamental elements. The first element is to develop techniques that make the elucidation or the explanation of the computational structure of nature and the mind easier. The second element is the creation of new computing algorithms and machines that have powerful cognitive and computational abilities. This includes development of new techniques of representing and manipulating knowledge, inference, anumana, and deduction. The tasks of representing and processing knowledge with a somewhat different emphasis has parallels in many ancient disciplines. Thus, grammarians have long considered questions of relating facts about the physical world and cognition to linguistic expressions. Likewise, logicians have developed formal structures to relate events and draw inferences from them, anumana pramana. This is seen best in the work of ancient Indian logicians and grammarians. It has been argued by Ingalls, Stahl, Matilal, Briggs, Kak, and others that many contemporary developments in formal logic, linguistics, and computer sciences are a rediscovery of the work of these ancient masters. But apart from the question of a correct history of ideas, it raises the following important question of significance to Sanskritists as well as cognitive and computer scientists, which is, are there rules in ancient logic and grammar that may be of use in making further advance in cognitive and computer sciences? This is a fair question to ask, no matter how left of a commie you are. A little bit of history shows why this is a valid question. 19th century Western linguists did not see the significance of the context-sensitive rules of Panini's grammar, but which is the main essence of Sanskrit. Okay, it's context-sensitive. In fact, their fundamental importance was seen only when Paninian style structures were first introduced by Western linguists such as Chomsky about 30 years ago. Okay, even last day someone was saying that Chomsky's idea seems to be drawn from India's language systems, right? So this is the reason. Chomsky was not even stealing our things. He has done this while giving due credit. So in fact, their fundamental importance was seen only when Paninian style structures were first introduced by Western linguists such as Chomsky about 30 years ago. According to the distinguished linguist Fritz Stahl, quote, "We can now assert with the power of hindsight that Indian linguists in the 5th century BC knew and understood more than Western linguists in the 19th century AD. Can one not extend this conclusion and claim that it is probable that Indian linguists are still ahead of their Western colleagues and may continue to be so in the next century? Quite possible. All we can say is that it is difficult to detect something that we have not already discovered ourselves." End quote. Computationally, grammars of natural languages are as powerful as any computing machine. But since the setting of a grammar is so different from the typical purpose of a computer, this fact is often obscured. The formal structure of a grammar can be easily adapted so as to perform numerical processing. In this paper, we discuss formal aspects of certain rules of Panini's grammar, Ashtadhyayi, which is traditionally studied together with the Dhatupatha, which is a list of verbal roots arranged into sub-lists, and the Ganapatha. This is not Patha, this is Patha. Dhatupatha and Ganapatha, which is a list of various assets of morphs, one class being the Dhatupatha. It is now becoming clear that A does not merely deal with analysis of words, that is, Shabdanu Shasana. Okay, so it is now becoming clear that Ashtadhyayi does not merely deal with analysis of words, but in fact provides a structure for the analysis of sentences. Yeah, because it's a framework. Due to its algebraic nature and its comprehensiveness, the structure has been described as a machine generating words and sentences of Sanskrit. Exactly, which is why Sanskrit does not actually have a limited number of words. You can keep creating words and keep creating more words by joining anything. And this is why even see Nityananda Mishra is such a big software engineer guy who finds his heart and so much joy in studying Sanskrit. It's not a coincidence. Composed in the succinct sutra style, Ashtadhyayi consists of nearly 4,000 sutras that capture the fundamentals of Sanskrit language in terms of its phonology, morphology, and syntax. As in any formal system, the structure consists of definitions, theorems, which are linguistic facts, and meta-theorems, which are rules of rules regarding rules. The rules are of different kinds. Some are universal and some are context-sensitive transformations. Yeah. Some can be universal, some can be context-sensitive transformations. Others operate sequentially and others occur recursively. Generally, these rules are expressed in three groups. 1. Rules of interpretation or meta-rules, which is samgyana and paribhasha rules. Then, rules prescribing affixes after two kinds of basic dhatu and pratipadika roots. And third, rules of transformation for the stems and the suffixes. कि कैसे transform होगा, which is the morphophonemic rules. Note that a computer program has exactly the same general features of context-sensitive rules, recursion, and sequential rule application. It is not surprising, therefore, that these sutras have been compared to a computer program that generates Sanskrit sentences. Panini's grammar is algebraic, where a finite set of rules generates an infinite number of words and sentences. Yeah. It is generally agreed that the Paninian system is based on a principle of economy and Occam's razor. Those who are science background people know what he's talking about. This makes the structure to be, okay, the Occam's razor means that the simplest explanation for something is the right explanation. Taito. Occam's razor. Simplest explanation is the right explanation. This makes the structure to be...
Simplest explanation comes with the least amount of assumptions.
Okay.
That doesn't always have to be the right answer.
Okay. Simplest explanation comes with the least amount of assumptions, according to my AI engineer friend sitting by here. This makes the structure to be of special interest to cognitive scientists. Furthermore, development of logic has been seen as emerging from the background of grammatical categories both in India and in Greece. Considering the preeminent position of the Paninian system in the Indian intellectual tradition, its significance for students of logic and history of science becomes clear, which is why we have a plethora of scientists who are devout Hindus. Okay, let me check what Ninad is saying. Dada, you should pronounce Panini correctly, otherwise Panini becomes that European food item. Okay, Panini you mean, right? I see, yeah, right. It's Panini. Well said. Panini, first as in Vishnu and second one, normal one. Heart attack in kidney as comments. Okay. History of science becomes clear. Okay. It is also important to place Panini's... Yeah, I did not notice it until now. वो दाग तो है एक के ऊपर. That means Panini only. Thanks for correcting. It is also important to place Panini's grammar in the context of continuing development of mathematics and science in India. Seidenberg has shown that the rise of the earliest mathematics should be seen in the Vedic literature. Arey kya Hindutvadi. Furthermore, Subhash has established that the Brahmi script of Panini's time is to be derived from the Indus script of the 3rd millennium BC. This means that Panini himself was a descendant to a very long and rich tradition of learning. Grammatical categories serve to express knowledge about the world. Panini's system of knowledge representation is based in the Karaka theory. The Karakas are deep structure relations that mediate mappings from semantic relations such as agent, goal, location to phonological representations in terms of case endings that may express voices via surface structures in terms of morphological categories such as nominal cases, prepositions, and verbal voices. On the morphological level, the Karakas are presented by 6 triplets of case endings, each of which roughly corresponds with one Karaka. The Karaka rules are applied with the governing or Adhikara Sutra. Anabhihite. Add a case ending after a lexical unit to convey a Karaka only if it is not expressed already. 2 of the Karakas, Kartra and Karman, can be expressed by verbal endings, whereas some other Karakas can also be expressed by primary and secondary suffixes. The Karaka theory is of obvious interest to the computer scientist interested in natural language processing. The reader interested in the details of this theory should see the essays by Joshi and Kiparsky and Stahl. A comprehensive study of Ashtadhyayi from a computing science perspective should include linguistic, structural, and algorithmic aspects. Such a study must be based on the long tradition of analysis of Ashtadhyayi that goes back about 2500 years. Problems of particular interest to the computer scientist include the arrangement of the rules and the smallest set of rules that would be equivalent to Ashtadhyayi. Rearranged rules, such as those of Bhattoji Dikshita in his Siddhanta Kaumudi, would provide an invaluable frame of comparison. But before a comparison can be made from an algorithmic perspective, one needs to describe Ashtadhyayi's rule in a form convenient for analysis by computer. With this in mind, we discuss in this introductory paper certain formal aspects of Panini's grammar. In particular, we consider the following two aspects. 1. The sutra style and the nature of rules. 2. The structure of the rule system. We will show how the rules can be easily cast in familiar algebraic or transformational forms. An explicitly algebraic representation is essential before Panini's rules can be expressed on a computer so that their computational and cognitive implications can be properly assessed. Okay, now we'll start the second subchapter. Your Upadhi last name is Krishna Chandra Rayera. These are literally Chomsky's favorite subjects, lol. Okay. Arnav Chakraborty is saying Yagyadevam's decipherment of Indus also show its relation with Brahmi. Yeah, but the academic consensus says that it's not really deciphered as of yet. इसी वजह से हमारे ऋषि हमारे पूज्य होते हैं. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let me have a sip of this. Assistant face reveal. No, he's busy. Okay. So the second subchapter is the sutra style and the nature of the rules. The sutra style represents a genre of Sanskrit literature. Traditionally, a sutra is defined as the most concise of statements which uses as few letters as possible. Although many books have been written in the sutra style, Panini's grammar or Panini Sutra is unanimously regarded by tradition as a model of the sutra style of composition. Words and sentences constitute the data as well as the rules for grammar. Language is thus both a means and an end. Yeah, beautifully said. I never thought of it this way. Language is both a means and an end because words and sentences constitute the data कि क्या चीज describe किया जा रहा है, and the rules of the grammar is also visible in the language itself, in the statement itself. Panini's grammar deals with Sanskrit, but its end language, the object language, and the means language, the meta language, are distinctly different from each other. Panini's meta language has its own vocabulary, syntax, and grammar, although it is basically Sanskrit. An extensive use of abbreviated expressions and other devices has given it an appearance of a code language. Abbreviated expressions. It is this feature of the Panini Sutra that has inspired comparisons with a computer program. A few prominent aspects of this code language will be described later. A striking feature of the language of the sutras is the use of abbreviated expressions. Economy of expression is Panini's primary concern. Economy of expression meaning कितना कम में कितना ज़्यादा बोल सकते हैं. And he has achieved it by employing several algebraic devices. Use of technical terms in place of lengthy expressions is one of them. He uses symbols like ti, hu, gha, and bha. Further, a code representation, technically known as pratyahara, enables him to save words and even letters in a rule. For instance, instead of directly mentioning the letters Y, V, R, L, Panini makes use of the pratyaharayan. For vowels, he uses the term ach. For consonants, hal, and so on. Following is an example of a rule containing all code words. Iko, yan, achi. I, U, R, and L are replaced by Y, V, R, and L respectively when a vowel follows. Use of words without adding endings to them, traditionally known as avi bhakti kanirdesha, is another striking feature of the language of the Panini Sutras. However, it will not be described here. A Panini Sutra is a single clause. A Panini Sutra is a single clause preposition consisting of a subject, a predicate, and an environment. It is a statement about grammatical features such as a suffix, an augment, a substitute, accent, reduplication, elision, and compounding. It is usually of the form A is B in the environment C. This can be written in the following formula. So therefore PS is A is এই সাইনটা কি রে, এই যে গ্রেটার দ্যান এর আগে ড্যাশ, শুধু ড্যাশ কিন্তু ইকুয়াল টু সাইনটা নেই, গ্রেটার দ্যান, হ্যাঁ আচ্ছা okay, I don't know what this sign is. If anyone knows, let me know. A dash, then the greater sign, and then B into C. A is B in the environment C. This can be written in the following formula. Here okay, उसके बाद ही explain किया हुआ है वो symbol. That symbol stands for is or becomes, and the bracket stands for when. When A stands for the subject, B represents the predicate, and C stands for environment. I see. So A becomes B of C. While A and B are the necessary components of a sutra, C is optional. A unique feature of the P's is the Panini Sutras is the absence of a finite verb predicate. Tradition holds that the finite verb asti, is or bhavati, becomes, is taken to be present in each rule. A Paninian rule is thus a statement about something being or becoming something else. Panini marked prediction for normalization. Panini's marked predilection for normalization is reflected in his attempt to reduce all statements to those on being or becoming. Thus, for instance, instead of saying tat lupyate, that code letter is dropped, Panini says tasya lopa. It's elision. That is, the code letters elision takes place. Nice. Another interesting feature of the Paninian proposition is the total absence of syllogization or any other kind of logical argumentation. Other sutra works such as the Nyaya Sutra and the Brahma Sutra often contain, in addition to A, B and C, a cause which is hetu and an illustration, drishtanta. In his grammar, Panini never poses the question why. His sutras are statements of linguistic facts in reply to the question what. In other words, he describes facts of language without accounting for them. To sum up, the language of the Panini Sutras consists of three types, A, B and C as shown as above. Okay. Nina is saying we need to make compilers that can convert Sanskrit to be able to use it as a programming language. Plus, there are few translators and users, so there is a problem. Yeah. Linguist is saying Ashtadhyayi can be used for deriving both Vedic and Lokik Sanskrit, but my leftist Stanford counterpart Pollock disagrees. Your counterpart, so are you a professor linguist me? अरे कुछ bio बताइए आपका. Basically, my first chapter on logic operators equivalence. अरे who is this guy among us? He seems to be a professor of Sanskrit. अरे tell us about yourself. अच्छा, Binay, what did Binay say? Binay is saying, Dada, do you know why we were not able to make application out of it? We developed these outstanding framework but not their application. वो तो कैपिटलिज्म के बिना नहीं आएगा. कोई अगर ऐप बनाने का कंपनी बनाने जाएगा, उसके पहले तुमको 4 जगह लाइसेंस के लिए घूमना पड़ेगा और भीख मांगना पड़ेगा और लोकल नेता के पास जाना पड़ेगा, ठीक है, तब कैसे होगा? ये सब ऐप बनाने का एनवायरनमेंट, इकोनॉमिक एनवायरनमेंट आज आया है. कंपनी खोलना कितना कठिन था संदीप सान्याल लोग आने से पहले. आज भी कंपनी बंद करना कितना प्रॉब्लम है, ठीक है. कंपनी खोलना जितना आसान है, कंपनी बंद करना उतना आसान होगा. तब जाके ऐसा सिस्टम होगा कि हर कोई यहाँ पे कहीं पे बैठ के ऐप बना रहा है, ठीक है. कैलिफोर्निया का इतना बढ़ोतरी किस लिए है? कैलिफोर्निया में कंपनी बंद करना इज दिस इजी. You just have to fill up some form for 10 minutes in some website to say, see, I'm closing this company down. So what? Make a new company and then hire again the same people. यहाँ पे जो ये चुतियापा है कि अरे अब लोग खाएंगे क्या, जूट मिल बंद हो गया साला, और जैसे कोई काम नहीं है और कोई फैक्ट्री जिंदगी में नहीं होगा, जूट ही बनाना है भोसड़ी वालों को, वो गंगा के किनारे बैठ के. तो उसके वजह से ये सब नहीं हुआ इंडिया में. 4 years timeline. Nice. Okay. Let's see. To sum up, the language of the Panini Sutras consists of 3 types, A, B and C as shown above. The relation between A and B on the one hand and that of C with A and B on the other is expressed by Panini by the use of certain cases. While the predicate item is always used in the nominative, the case of the subject item is determined by its specific relation with the predicate. For instance, if the predicate is a substitute, adesha, okay, adesh, I see. For instance, if the predicate is a substitute, adesh, the subject is used in the genitive. This has been directly stated by Panini in a rule. If on the other hand, the predicate is a suffix, which is pratyaya, the subject is put in the ablative. Environment is expressed in the locative if it follows the subject. These statements can be put in the following formula. For substitute, A of genitive becomes or is B of nom का क्या था full form? Okay, I forgot. You all can see hopefully. C, LOC for suffix A of ABL then becomes B nom and then of C, but this is optional. This is the optional part. C of location. Yeah, C of location is the optional part here. Okay, a few more formulas can be formed on the basis of other observations. The following rule is an illustration of the first formula. Iko yan achi. Yan is substituted in place of ik when ach follows. The genitive form ika, the nominative form yan, and the locative form I see. So nom is a nominative form and the locative form and the genitive form. And the locative form ach are in accordance with the statement made above, and the mutual relationship among the three items is conveyed by the case endings. Science may be viewed as a body of generalizations followed by statements of exception when necessary. Paninian science of grammar also consists of a set of general rules followed by statements of exception. A Panini Sutra can be thus either a generalized statement or a specific statement which stands as an exception to a generalization. In a generalized as well as particular statement, the subject or the predicate can be a multi-member category. A single predicate may be shared by many or all subjects. For instance, consider dhato, the dhato karmani an. The suffix an is added to a root in the sense of object. The word dhato, which is put in the bracket, the reason will be explained later, is the subject and an is the predicate. Here dhatu stands for any root in general. Yeah, the dhatu. The statement of the suffix an thus is applicable to all roots in general, right? Karmani an. The predicate an is thus shared by all subjects. Here the subject, which is a multi-member category, is represented by a class term, that is dhatu. This type of Panini Sutras can be represented as a to the power of L minus n, which becomes b of c. On the other hand, sometimes many predicates are linked with one subject. For example, nar bidach biri sachau, I don't know how to pronounce that, and then nar inach pitachi kachicha. The suffixes bidyach birisach, I'm pronouncing this wrong obviously, inach and pitach are added to ni in the sense of flat nose, and in the case of the later two suffixes, ni is replaced by chika and chi respectively. Here as many as 4 predicates are shared by one single subject, ni. This statement could be represented as a becomes b to the power of 1 minus n of c. A third type in which both a and b are simultaneously multi-member categories is also occasionally met with. For instance, dhato navul tracho. The suffixes navul and trich are added to any root. This statement is of the type a to the power of 1 minus n becomes b to the power of 1 minus n of c. Just as is true for a and b, c also can be a multi-member category. For instance, dhato bhavakarmano atmane padam. Atmane pada endings are added to a root in the sense of bhava, state, or karman, object. Bhava karmano expresses the environment in terms of meaning. Bhava karmano. The two meanings bhava and karman are mentioned here. This can be represented as A becomes B of c to the power of 1 minus n. What did I get into? Okay. References of K.C. Rai. Jhoothi banana hai. Yes. Maximus, now you made me curious. How do you know about it? Any references I could read? Okay. No, I have studied Sanskrit for 5 years, but not professor. I called him as my counterpart because he even after 40 years is still at my level of Sanskrit, which is half my which is half knowledge. Nice. Okay, Binay Singh's previous comment kahan gaya? Sable, yeah, I answered this. Okay, ठीक है. Finally, combination of all the three multi-member categories is also met with in certain sutras. For instance, Dhato Tayor Eva Krityaktakhalartha. The suffixes Kritya, Kta and those conveying the same meaning as that of Khal are added to any root in the sense of Bhava, state or Karman, object. The term Tayo is to be interpreted as Bhava Karmano. We thus have a statement of the type a to the power of 1 minus n becomes b to the power of 1 minus n of c to the power of 1 minus n. Observations made above hold true of both the general and special rules in Panini's grammar. To sum up, the three categories A, B and C may be either single member or multi-member categories. They appear in all permutations and combinations in Panini Sutras. Now it remains to be seen whether Panini has provided any clarification regarding the application of the multi-member categories. Two questions arise when a statement contains multi-member categories. Are the members in a category linked to each other disjunctively or conjunctively? What are the mutual relations between the members of two multi-member categories? Question 1. Panini has employed three linking devices in the A, namely juxtaposition, Dvanda compound and the particle cha. They link either items or statements. We are at present considered with linking of items. These devices work in terms of disjunctions or conjunction. Disjunction implies application of all the items separately, whereas conjunction implies their application together. Items put together in a Dvandva compound are disjunctively connected. For instance, Dhato, Navul Trachau, the suffixes Navul and Trich are added to any root. Here the compound Navul Trachau is a multi-member predicate. The items Navul and Trich are disjunctively connected with each other. Therefore, they are separately and not simultaneously added to a root. Thus we can derive two separate forms such as Pachaka and Paktra from root Pach. On the contrary, if the items are put in juxtaposition, they are conjunctively connected with each other and are therefore simultaneously applicable. For instance, Sasyar Dhadhatuke Ta. Sa is replaced by ta when an ardhadhatuka ending beginning with sa follows. Here two items C and ardhadhatuke, which belongs to the category C, are not put together in a compound but are mentioned separately in juxtaposition. Therefore, they are conjunctively connected. In other words, C and ardhadhatuke are co-referential. Whenever items belonging to one category are put in juxtaposition in a rule, they hold a head modifier, or also known as adjective substantive relationship. Two or more items belonging to the same category and yet not connected by a head modifier relation never occur in juxtaposition in a single sutra. Juxtaposed occurrence of two heads of modifiers always indicates the existence of separate sutras. The particle cha is never used to link two or more items as it does in ordinary language. Items belonging to the same category in a rule are either put in a compound or are juxtaposed according to their relation with each other. And the second question is that Panini accepts the principle of numerical correspondence for linking items in two multi-member categories. He states the rule as follows. Yatha sankhyam anudesha samanam. Items in two categories having the same number are connected with each other in their respective number, that is, respective order. Take for instance, okay, that's a huge word. Tudi salatura varnam mati kucha varad dhak chandanyaka. The suffixes dhak, chan, dhanya, yak are respectively added to the stems tudi, salatura, varmati and kuchavara. In the sense, it is the place where his ancestor lived. Here, both A and B consist of 4 members of each, and the members of A are connected with the members of B in the same order in which they are put in the compound. For acha, yeah, did the page end here? Wait. Yeah. Okay, next subchapter. Arrangement of the rules. As stated earlier, a Paninian rule consists of 3 elements, A, B and C, the last being optional. I see. So this is the basic framework we are dealing with here. That C will always be optional. All these elements are not always explicitly present in the wording of a sutra. Just as a finite verb form is implicit, a certain element is understood to be present in a sutra from the context. While interpreting certain rules, commentators actually borrow the missing term from the preceding rule. This borrowing or continuation of a word or words is technically called anuvritti. The procedure of anuvritti is nothing but ellipsis, which is a regular feature of ordinary language. While ellipsis is optional and has an ad hoc character in ordinary language, anuvritti is a systematic and mechanical device in A. The sutras in A are arranged in such a manner that a rule borrows an item or items from the preceding context. By putting together such rules which share an item or items in common, Panini has been able to achieve economy of expression to a large extent. कि कितना कम बात में कितना ज़्यादा content हम समझा पाए. A few examples of anuvritti will show the working of this device. Suptinantam padam, that which ends in sup or thin endings, is called pada. Na kye padam, that which ends in n, is called pada when the suffix kya follows. The predicate item padam, which is missing in the previous example, is continued from the earlier example, suptinantam padam. The missing item, when borrowed from the preceding rule, is put into brackets. Okay. So, napumsake bhave kata dhato. The suffix kata is added to the root in the sense of bhava, state, and the form is used in neuter. Therefore, napumsaka, neuter. Lyut cha, napumsake dhato, and suffix lyut is added to a root in the sense of bhava, and the form is used in the neuter. The environment expressed by the terms. Okay, let me check some comments. Man, initially I didn't understand this, but this guy is actually telling something quite profound. Yeah, the reference to cha is quite relevant. Yes, ding dong bell. How do you come about these incredible professors and their works? I mean, how do you zero on the matter on the subject matter and the subject matter expert? Okay, by listening to his podcast, he has appeared on Abhijit Chavra and Sanjay Dixit countless times. So today, as a celebration of my 5,000 subscriber live stream, I decided that let's just delve into his works only specifically today. Okay. Nice. Okay. So, the predicate item padam, which is missing in... Okay, yeah, we discussed this. The environment expressed by the terms napumsake and bhave is carried forward in part 3. Which was part 3.3115. Yeah, lyutcha. From napumsake bhave kata. The subject item dhato, which is carried forward in napumsake bhave kata, is also continued in a number of rules. For example, the term dhato, which is mentioned in 192. ये कहाँ पे? ये शायद बाद में है, और maybe बहुत पहले चला गया, हम भूल गए. For example, the term dhato, which is mentioned in this, is continued throughout the following chapter, nearly in 500 rules. Through the device of anuvritti, Panini has been thus able to avoid repetition of the word dhato. अरे abbreviations बना लिया है. Avoid the use of repetition of the word dhato more than 500 rules. In more than 500 rules, yeah. So 500 rules में बार बार धातो बोलना ही नहीं पड़ा उसको. Anuvritti is thus intrinsic with the style of Panini Sutras. Although Panini has arranged rules in his grammar mainly on thematic basis, the arrangement of rules within different sections is totally governed by the dictates of Anuvritti. A very important difference between Anuvritti and ellipsis in ordinary language consists in the fact that while the latter is dependent upon expectancy and the listener's, or rather receiver's intention, the former is obligatory. So, Anuvritti is obligatory. Items in the previous rules must continue in the subsequent rules. Expectancy is not just sufficient ground for continuing an item. An item is found to be continued even when there is no expectancy. For example, Sarvadhatukam apit. So here A, Sarvadhatuka suffix other than the one which is pit is nit. And second example is Asama yogal lit kit apit. So A, lit suffix other than the one which is pit added to a root not ending in a conjunct consonant is kit. All the three elements, namely subject, lit, and predicate kit and environment, asam yogat, are present in this example, asam yogat lit kit. It presents no expectancy for any item in order to complete its meaning. Yet the item apit is continued in the rule. There are, however, some constraints on this flow of anuvritti. Interesting. The major constraint is that an item is carried forward in the subsequent rules until it is blocked by an incompatible item. Thus, compatibility and incompatibility play a major role in deciding anuvritti of words. For instance, in the example given above the item nit, which is continued in example sarvadhatukam apit, is not further continued in the next example because it contains the item kit, which is incompatible with nit. Two incompatible items do not exist in a rule except under some special circumstances. The fundamental rule of anuvritti can thus be stated as follows. An item is continued in the subsequent rules unless it is blocked by an incompatible item. Two items are incompatible if they belong to the same category, that is subject, predicate, or environment. Again in the same example quoted above, the items sarvadhatuka and lit are incompatible with each other. Therefore, the former is not continued in the example asamayogal lit kit, as it is blocked by the latter. Items which are incompatible with each other usually appear in the same case ending. However, appearance in the same case ending is not the only identification mark of incompatible items. I see. Their relative syntactic position has also to be taken into consideration. Turning back again to the above example, the two items sarvadhatukam and apit together form the subject category of the first example. While the sarvadhatukam example. While sarvadhatukam is the head item, apit is its modifier or adjective. I see. Apit is the adjective for sarvadhatukam. Sarvadhatukam apit. There is obviously no incompatibility between a head and a modifier. This is true not only when they belong to one and the same rule as in the above case, but also when they are mentioned in two different rules. Thus, modifier item apit mentioned in the sarvadhatukam example is compatible with the head item in the subsequent rule. Therefore, although the head item lit in the next example blocks the incompatible item sarvadhatukam in the preceding rule, it does not block the modifier item apit, which is therefore continued in the next example. Let's just check what was the second example. Yeah, asam yogal. Yeah, that was the next example. Okay. Thus, modifier item apit mentioned in the first example is compatible with the head item in the subsequent rule. Therefore, although the head item lit in the second example blocks the incompatible item sarvadhatukam in the preceding rule, it does not block the modifier item, which is the adjective apit, which is therefore continued in the second example. Another rule of anuvritti may be laid down on the basis of this observation as follows. A head item blocks an incompatible head item. Okay. A head item blocks an incompatible head item, but it does not block a modifier even if it is not incompatible. And also, a modifier blocks an incompatible modifier, but it does not block a head item if it is not incompatible. Okay. There are, however, cases when a modifier is not continued since it is incompatible not on syntactic but on semantic grounds. These cases will not be discussed here as they have no direct bearing on the present topic. Arrangement of the sutras in the Ashtadhyayi is initially topic wise. Thus, the Panini Sutras begins with definitions of various technical terms and rules of interpretation and treats various types of derivations such as compounds, primary derivatives and secondary derivatives in separate sections. The last part of the Ashtadhyayi is devoted to morphophonemics, including Q-phonic combination, accent and tone. Within a thematic group, the sutras are arranged on the basis of the principles of anuvritti. Although a generalization is followed by specific or individual rules, this order is often violated due to exigencies of anuvritti. Anuvritti is thus a keyword for the arrangement of the Panini Sutras. Okay. Now techniques of the description. उसके पहले थोड़ा देखते हैं. Is your friend interested in all of these? Yes, he is. I had interviewed him for my channel also. You can check it out. It was a 2-part interview with him. His name is Shayok Paul. He is a internationally acclaimed machine learning engineer. Okay, techniques of the description. Okay, let me drink. Let me just make my voice wet a little. বাপরে কি সব ভারী ভারী আলোচনা হচ্ছে. ইয়েস, আজকে বাড়াবাড়ি হয়ে গেছে ব্যাপারটা. এই পেপারটা তো কঠিন বুঝতে পারিনি. And after this paper, we'll do 2 short papers, 3 or 4 pages. So those of you who are getting frustrated, just wait it out. There are a little easier and fun stuff to discuss in the next 2 papers. Techniques of the description. In addition to anuvritti and artificial terminology including pratyaharas, Panini employs the device called anubandha. An anubandha is a code letter which indicates a grammatical function like elision and reduplication. Panini has made use of almost all vowels and consonants as symbols for various functions. Anubandhas are added to various grammatical units, right, such as suffix, an augment and a root. For example, the suffix a is mentioned as an, where the code letter na suggests that the vowel, either initial or final depending upon the type of derivation, so suggests that the vowel of the stem to which the affix is added is lengthened. The anubandha ka attached to an augment indicates that it is added to the end of an element. Thus, the augment ta or ta, which is mentioned as tuk in the rule harasvasya pitikriti tuk, is added after an element. For example, in the form adritya, it appears after root dra, which ends in a short vowel. The anubandha na attached to a verbal root indicates that the root is conjugated in the middle voice. Anubandha is thus a powerful device. A major aspect of Panini's descriptive technique is the law of utsarga and apavada that relates exceptions and individual rules. Although Panini never explicitly states the law of utsarga and apavada, it is a part of the interpretative apparatus used with the Panini Sutras. The law of utsarga and apavada states that an apavada or exception is more powerful than an utsarga or general rule. Now, interestingly, Bengali, which is a local Magdhi Prakrit variation, there we have different meaning for all these words. Okay, apavada or apabad in Bengali means an unfair, a wrong rumor or accusation, and what's the other? And utsarga means dedicating something to someone. Therefore, before applying, so, or whereas here during the time of Panini, utsarga means general rule and apavada means exception. Okay, linguist is trying to enter here, but we'll have to finish this paper right now. Therefore, before applying the utsarga, one has to give check for its apavadas. The utsarga thus occupies the area not occupied by its exceptions. Further, once an utsarga is barred from entering into the area of its exception, it can never enter the area again. For example, tasya patyam an are. The suffix an is added to a noun in the sense his offspring. Okay, tasya patyam an. Ata in tasya patyam. The suffix in added to a noun ending in a in the sense his offspring is an exception. Therefore, the suffix an taught by the tasya patyam an is barred from being applied to stems ending in a. Thus, from the stem daksha is derived the patronymic dakshi, which is daksha plus in and not daksha plus an. Okay, so daksha plus in makes it dakshi, not daksha plus an. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, this is obvious. Sometimes application of the utsarga even in the domain of apavada is desired. In such cases, Panini announces that the apavada operates optionally. For instance, divyacha, dhakstriya. The suffix dhak is added to a feminine noun consisting of two vowels in the sense his offspring, and pilaya va anstriya. The suffix an is added optionally to pila in the sense his offspring. Dada, if you are tired of reading the paper, send the Google Meet link. Here we will read as you are continuously reading for last 2 hours. No, I'm not tired. Fitness rakha kyun hai? So the option marker va in this example, in the pilaya va example, suggests that the exceptional suffix an operates optionally. Therefore, the utsarga suffix dhak taught by the previous example is also applied, and two alternate forms pailaya, pila plus dhak, and paila, pila plus an are derived. An extremely important principle is the siddha principle. Even though Panini does not directly mention it, his statement of the asiddha principle implies it. Traditionally, the whole Ashtadhyayi is divided into two parts on the basis of one, the Siddha Kanda to the end of the first section of the 8th chapter, and two, the Asiddha Kanda or Tripadi to the end of the 4th section of the 8th chapter. Tripadi begins with the Adhikara, chapter heading 8.2.1, Purvatra Siddham. From now on, every rule is regarded as not having taken effect with reference to preceding ones. That is Purvatra Siddham. के अब से वो जब आ जाएगा उसके बाद से from now on every rule is regarded as not having taken effect with reference to preceding ones. Nice. Yeah, censor the IP address. Yeah, I'll just deny them. Okay. The term Siddhakanda implies that any rule in this part of the Ashtadhyayi is Siddha, which means having taken effect. Siddha. Yeah, this Siddha still means that exactly today in Bengali after about 3,000, 4,000 years. For any other rule in the whole of Ashtadhyayi. Okay. So the term Siddhakanda implies that any rule in this part of Ashtadhyayi is Siddha, which means having taken effect for any other rule in the whole of Ashtadhyayi. In other words, before being effective, a rule takes into consideration possibility of application of other rules. The sequence of rules in the book does not matter in the derivation of process. Acha. So, किस order में वो rules है, that does not matter. What matters is the siddha relation among the rules. The finite verb from bhavati is, for instance, derived as follows: bhu plus lat, bhu plus tip, and bhu plus sap, bho plus a plus ti, and Okay, bhavati. It will be clear from the derivational stages given above that the rule in the first section of the third chapter applies after the rule in the fourth section of the same chapter, and the rule in the sixth chapter applies after the rule in the seventh chapter. These rules are siddha for each other. Okay, these rules are siddha for each other so that they can feed each other. The application of 0.68. Okay, so the application of bhu plus sap 78. So bhu plus tip is dependent on the application of 115. So bho plus a plus ti in the present example. This free movement of rules in all directions is implied by the siddha principle. Yet this arbitrary application of rules within 1.1 minus 1 by 8. Okay. So, okay, 1.128 is restricted somewhat by a category of rules that are ordered pairs. In each pair, the rule that is applied first is called antaranga, and the rule that is applied next is called bahiranga. On the contrary, the rules in the asiddha kanda are operative only in one direction, purvatra siddham. This states that all the rules stated subsequently are asiddha and effective for the rules stated earlier, that is, for the rules in the siddha kanda. Similarly, for each rule in the asiddha kanda, all subsequent rules are asiddha. In other words, rules in the asiddha kanda operate in the same order in which they are arranged. Okay, rules in the asiddha kanda operate in the same order which they are arranged. For example, the form pakva is derived from root pak as follows: pakta, pakta, and pakva. It is clear from the procedure given above that pakta precedes the application of pakva. In fact, if pakva is applied first, then pakta cannot be applied since the environment favorable for its application does not exist. The rules in the asiddha kanda must therefore apply in the same sequence which they are stated by Panini. Both the siddha and asiddha principles have been recently studied carefully, leading to important new insights. Okay, now concluding remarks. Our analysis was meant to highlight several formal features of Panini's grammar that have direct parallels in computer science. What might be other features of the grammar that have not yet been rediscovered in computer science remains to be seen. But the very success of Ashtadhyayi suggests that aspects of its structure will have implications for further advance in computer science, knowledge representation, and linguistics. In particular, we can hope for significant applications in natural language processing. The ongoing analysis of the structures of Panini and those of the later grammarians and logicians will be aided by the development of software development to implement Ashtadhyayi on a digital computer. The specific issues of immediate interest to the computer scientists include analysis of the arrangement of the rules and search for other arrangements that are equivalent in terms of their generative power. The formal aspects of these arrangements and their relationships is likely to help define the notion of distance between grammars. Such a notion is of immediate relevance for machine translation. Given two languages with grammars that are close in structure, as in the Indo-Aryan family of languages, one would expect the translation across the languages to be relatively easy. A formalization of the notion of closeness is also likely to give pointers regarding how an automatic translation might proceed. One great virtue of the Paninian system is that it operates at the level of roots and suffixes, defining a deeper level of analysis than afforded by recent approaches like generalized phrase structure grammars that have been inspired by development of computer parsing techniques. This allows for one to include parts of the lexicon in the definition of the grammatical structure. Closeness between languages that share a great deal of lexicon, that share a lot of same terminologies and words, will thus be represented better using a Paninian structure. These fundamental investigations that have bearing on linguistics, knowledge representation, and natural language processing by computer require collaboration between computer scientists and Sanskritists. Computer-oriented studies on Ashtadhyayi would also help to introduce artificial intelligence, logic, and cognitive science as additional areas of study in the Sanskrit departments of Indian universities. इसके लिए तो This would allow the Sanskrit departments to complement the program of the computer science departments. With the incorporation of these additional areas, a graduate of Sanskrit could hope to make useful contributions to the computer software industry as well, particularly in the fields of natural language processing and artificial intelligence. Nice. This was a fun paper, and now a short paper of just 11 pages. Okay, this was huge. Okay, let's just see what new comments have come. Okay, nice. We made words here. Okay. Wow. The speed of light and Puranic cosmology. So you see, what if Elon Musk का Neuralink का तो human testing शुरू हो गया है. So let him just make the Neuralink, और उसके बाद हम वैसे ही संस्कृत सीख जाएंगे. उसमें संस्कृत प्रोग्रामिंग कोई कर देगा और हम उससे ऐसे ही संस्कृत जान जाएंगे, और फिर यहाँ वहाँ जाके खुद से ही संस्कृत मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स उठा के पढ़ लेंगे, ऐसे ही ट्रांसलेट कर लेंगे. ओके. The speed of light and Puranic cosmology. Nice. Lots of people still online. Development of mathematics from Sanskrit. MP Chaudhary is a decent paper. I see. Okay, we'll discuss it someday. Okay. This is from 1999. Okay, I'm not reading the extract because we'll read the full paper anyway. So, Indian texts consider light to be like a wind. Was any thought given to its speed? Given the nature of the analogy, one would expect that this speed was considered finite. The Puranas speak of the moving Jyotish Chakra. Okay. श्रेयस कल्लुड़ी सिंह और 10 वर्षों के बाद भारत में इन्वेंशंस का स्पीड बढ़ेगा. यस. इंडियन. ओके, what do you guys suggest? Should I do this today or should I do this some other day? Because otherwise a lot of people will miss this, because we started with about 15 to 20 people. Now only 10 people are online. Shouldn't we do this with other people so that they can also feel interactive with this? Let me know. Some of you let me know if we should do this right now or do this some other day, because this is the one I'm most excited about. Hopefully Sanskrit TikTok is not one of those inventions. It has to be, because otherwise there will be no incentive. I had seen a quite interesting paper on of Shaivism, but it was like 100 pages long. If you feel like, you can Google and do a reading of it. I see. 100 pages will be too long. Then we'll have to do it like a book only after we finish all my other important books as well, because I am planning to do Daniel Argov's paper on moderates and extremists of Congress with special focus on Surendranath Banerjee also. Okay, so suggest guys, should we do this today or some other day? Okay, Shreyash is saying let's continue. Let's see what some other people say. Speed of light in Puranic cosmology. 11 pages, okay? Okay, divided opinions. Okay, since at least 2 people are saying that let's not do it today, let's just do it next day only. Okay, thanks for joining guys. We are doing it as soon as possible, these 2 papers. tomorrow maybe we'll do Brahma Puran, or maybe I'll finish these two only, or maybe these two are small papers. Okay, so tomorrow I'll probably do Brahma Puran and these two small papers also. Okay, so Puranic cosmology and Brahma Purana itself. It will be fun tomorrow. Okay, thanks for joining, guys. Good night then.